This is an SUTV News Special Report, Election 2020. Now reporting, Jacob Hitz and Adam Beam.
And welcome to our election headquarters here in the basement of Grove Hall. Jacob Hitz, Adam Beam, it's great to be with you. And we have had a lot of numbers come flying at us in the early moments of this historic election night. And it is now time for us to give some of the projections and run through the states that have already closed. Now 8:30 here on the East Coast, so we are well on our way through election night. We begin with the state of Florida, and it's 29 electoral votes. Right now, too close to call. 90% of the precincts are reporting numbers right now in the state of Florida. Taking a look at the numbers right now, both candidates with more than 5 million votes. Donald Trump leads Joe Biden 50.5% to 48.5%. Right now, still too close to call. Trump won the state by 1.4 years ago. Right now, he's up by 2. We'll see if he can maintain that. If he does, that helps keep him alive in this presidential race as we roll along. Now on to Georgia. In its 16 electoral votes, it's been a sudden battleground state. Right now, 20% of precincts are reporting in the state of Georgia. That closed at 7 o'clock. Georgia's only voted for one Democrat since 1984. It was Bill Clinton in 1992. Trump won the state by 5 points. Right now, Trump up by about 14 points in the state of Georgia. On to Indiana. Our first, we haven't projected Indiana yet, and it's 11 electoral votes. Since 1940, Indiana has voted Democrat 2 times. Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964 and Barack Obama in 2008. Trump won the state by 19 points. Of course, his Vice President, Mike Pence, from the state of Indiana. Right now, too early to call. 40% of the precincts reporting with Donald Trump up by about 19 points in the state of Indiana. Now a state that we can project, the state of Kentucky. We can project the state of Kentucky goes to Donald Trump. Since 1968, Kentucky has voted Democrat 3 times. It won't happen again tonight. 8 electoral votes go to Donald Trump. He won the state by 30 points in 2016. Right now, he is up by 20 with about 59% of precincts reporting. On to South Carolina, and it's 9 electoral votes. We can project the state of South Carolina for Donald Trump. Donald Trump won the state by 14 points in 2016, the largest win in the state since George W. Bush beat, who was that? That would have been, I'm having a brain fart here. John Kerry in 2004. George Bush beat John Kerry by 17 points. Right now, we can project Donald Trump wins South Carolina. The state of Vermont, the first state that Joe Biden is able to pick up, and it's 3 electoral votes. The home state of the Democratic nominee bridesmaid once again, Bernie Sanders. Clinton won the state by 26 points in 2016. One interesting note about Vermont, after voting for only one Democrat from 1856 to 1988, Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964, Vermont has voted for a Democrat in every election since 1992. That does not change tonight. Vermont goes for Joe Biden.
We now move on.
Finally, state of Virginia. Sorry.
My apologies.
After voting Republican in all but one election from 1952 to 2004, again, that was 1964 and Lyndon Johnson, Virginia has voted Democrat in the last 3 elections. Tonight, they make it 4. Joe Biden wins the 13 electoral votes in Virginia. Hillary Clinton won the state by 5 points 4 years ago. And, right now, 30% of precincts are reporting, and Donald Trump is up by 19 points over Joe Biden, but I guess the pollsters think that Joe Biden's going to pull this one out. So, still, Virginia right now projected for Joe Biden. Now, Adam.
Yes, now me. We now move on to the 3 states that closed at 7:30, and only one of them we are actually able to call at the moment. However, we will go through them in alphabetical order, starting with North Carolina, 15 electoral votes. They have been voting Republican since 2012 with Mitt Romney, but it has been a very close race every single time, and it's definitely one of those battleground states that both candidates have been looking at. It is definitely one of those states that both candidates could desperately need, especially Trump. Currently, as it stands right now, 65% of the votes have been cast in North Carolina, and the polls are currently showing that Biden is leading by about 8%. He is currently leading by about 8%, but once again, too early to call for North Carolina. In the state of Ohio, 18 electoral votes. Ohio has voted with every candidate, has voted with every single winning candidate. They've been voting, they have fluctuated between red and blue, but like I said, they have been voting with the winning candidate every year. No candidate has won an election without the state of Ohio, but right now it is simply too close. I mean, it's not too close to call, it is too early to call. It currently sits at 44%, and Trump is actually, Biden is currently up by a total 10%, but that is still with 44% in the state of Ohio. Moving on to the state that we can call from 730, West Virginia, 5 electoral votes. The state has shifted several times between supporting the Democrat and Republican Party in this history, but it has been primarily Republican from 1900 until the Great Depression, and then it became reliably Democratic since then, with a few exceptions. It voted for Eisenhower in 1956, it voted for Nixon in 1972, and it voted for Reagan in 1984, but through Bill Clinton's second election into 1996, it stayed Democratic, but after that, it has gone solidly Republican. Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton by over 42%. This was his second largest margin of victory outside of Wyoming, and that is why we are able to call the state of West Virginia for Donald Trump. In the state of Alabama, the last time a Democrat won the state of Alabama was Jimmy Carter in 1976. Republicans usually win Alabama by a large margin. They usually win by at least over 20 points, at the least 20 points, and Donald Trump won by nearly 28% in 2016, and that is why we are able to call the state of Alabama for President Trump and its 9 electoral votes. Moving on to the state of Connecticut, it has gone Democratic for the past 7 elections, and it's usually the Democrats win this state by a very large margin. It did, however, vote Republican in 1972 with President Nixon, all the way up to George Bush Sr. in 1988. But once again, the Democrats turned that state around, and they have been winning Connecticut for a very long time here and by a very sizable margin. Hillary Clinton won by 13.5% back in 2016, and that is why we were able to call the state of Connecticut for Joe Biden. Moving on to the state of Delaware and its 3 electoral votes. They have been voting Democratic since 1992. It's a very similar state in terms of Democratic support to Connecticut. And in fact, Joe Biden was the senator of Delaware from 1973 to 2009. Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump in 2016 by 11.5 points, and that is why we are able to call Delaware for Joe Biden and its 3 electoral votes. And the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is the only non-state to be enfranchised for presidential elections. A Republican has never won the District of Columbia. A Republican has never won the District of Columbia, not even in sweeps like with Reagan back in 1984. District of Columbia has always been a safe place for Democrats. They have always swept this area, and that is why we are going to give the District of Columbia to Joe Biden and its 3 electoral votes.
And it turns out we don't have a graphic for that. District of Columbia, we still care about you. Even though we don't have a spot for you really on the map, we still care about you. We still got your 3 electoral votes.
I think the thing about District of Columbia is I think that was such a safe call for Democrats. We didn't even consider having to make an alternative graphic
that's
for President
possible.
Trump, so it was a very safe call there. But
All right, Illinois now. Let's move on to Illinois, and it's 20 electoral votes, one of the biggest electoral prizes that there are. Since 1992, Illinois has voted Democrat in every election, and we can project that its 20 electoral votes will go to Joe Biden. Hillary Clinton won the state by 17 points 4 years ago, right on track with the margin from 2012, and right now, Joe Biden has a 13-point lead with only 5% of the precincts reporting in the state of Illinois. On to the state of Maine. Very unique in presidential politics, one of 2 states in the Union that split their electoral votes based on congressional district. As of this point, still no call in Maine. 1% of precincts are reporting right now in the state of Maine. Joe Biden up 57% to 39% right now, only about 4,000 votes being reported in Maine. Maine was the first time since 1828 that the electoral votes were split between the 2 primary candidates, which was John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson. Hillary Clinton won 3 electoral votes. She won the state by 3 points, the tightest margin in the state since 1980 when Reagan beat Carter by 5 points. Still no call yet in the state of Maine. On to Maryland, and it's 10 electoral votes. We project Maryland goes to Joe Biden. Maryland has voted Democrat in every election since 1992. Hillary Clinton won the state by 26 points. As of now, the way things look, no votes have been reported yet in Maryland, but we project Maryland goes to Joe Biden. Massachusetts, and it's 11 electoral votes. We project go to Joe Biden, the home state of Senator Elizabeth Warren. Since 1988, Massachusetts has voted for a Democrat in every election. Hillary Clinton won the state by 27 points. As of now, less than 1% of the precincts are reporting in Massachusetts. Biden is up by 37%. We expect that gap to tighten potentially a little bit. The 27 points that Clinton won by in 2016, the largest win for Democrats since Bill Clinton in 1992, and was dead even with the victory that Al Gore had in the state. Now moving on to Mississippi, and it's 6 electoral votes. In the South, Donald Trump wins Mississippi's 6 electoral votes. Since 1976, Mississippi has voted Democrat once. 1976 for Jimmy Carter. Trump won the state by 18 points, largest win since 2004 when George W. Bush won by 20 points. Mississippi to President Trump. In Missouri, we project the state of Missouri, and its 10 electoral votes go to nobody yet. still waiting on that one. From 1904 to 2004, Missouri voted for the winner all but once. In 1956, instead of voting for Dwight D. Eisenhower, they voted for Adlai Stevenson. They voted for Republicans in the last 5 elections. Trump won the state by 19 points 4 years ago. As of now, 1% of precincts are reporting Donald Trump is up by 32 points over Joe Biden, but still too early to call in Missouri. Now on to New Hampshire, and it's 4 electoral votes. Way up north, Hillary Clinton won the state by a fraction of a percent 4 years ago. Right now, too early to call. 11% of the precincts reporting right now Joe Biden up by 8 points over Donald Trump. New Hampshire has voted with the winner all but 2 times since 1980. 2004, they voted for John Kerry. 2016, they voted with Hillary Clinton. We'll see how things pan out tonight. Still no winner yet in New Hampshire.
Now moving on to the state of New Jersey, and it's 14 electoral votes. It has always been a rich prize for Democrats. It dropped from... New Jersey has gone Democratic in the last 7 elections after voting Republican in the previous 6 elections before that. Hillary Clinton won the state over Donald Trump by a margin of 55% to Trump's 41% in 2016, and we can call the state of New Jersey for Joe Biden. The state of Oklahoma, 7 electoral votes. The state voted Democratic in all but 2 elections through 1948, but has not gone Democratic since then, except for Lyndon B. Johnson's landslide victory back in 1964. In 2016, Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton by 65% to Hillary Clinton's 29%, and that is why we are able to call the state of Oklahoma and its 7 electoral votes for President Donald Trump. Now moving on to the state that both candidates have had their eyes on this entire election, and one that we most likely will not see results out coming tonight, and also in some possibilities could be the state that decides this entire election. We are of course talking about the home state right here, Pennsylvania, and its 20 electoral votes. Currently, how projections are shooting, Biden, as of right now, 10% of the votes are in Pennsylvania, and Biden is leading by a very sizable margin. However, I think that has a lot to do with early voting, as we'll see with most of the early votes that we'll hear from some of these states are from early voting, and that is why we are seeing such big margins of success for Joe Biden. But they are definitely going to get more narrow, not to jump ahead or anything, but you look at Texas, not going to close until 9 o'clock, but currently 61 votes. Biden had a very strong lead here in Texas, but now it is definitely narrowed down because now we're starting to get out of those early votes and we are starting to get into the more in-person votes. But currently, let's stick to Pennsylvania. It is now too early to call, and like we said, it is unlikely that we will see a lot of results coming out of Pennsylvania until after tonight. Moving on to the state of Rhode Island, where we can call a winner, the state has been reliably Democratic since 1928. It has only voted Republican 4 times. It voted for Eisenhower twice in '52 and in 1956. It voted for Nixon in 1972, and it voted for Reagan back in 1984. And he had won every state that year except for Minnesota and the District of Columbia. In 2016, Hillary Clinton defeated Donald Trump by about 15.5%. So it's definitely a safe call there. Rhode Island is going to Joe Biden. Moving on to the state of Tennessee and its 11 electoral votes. Since 1950, Republicans have usually won here, although there have been a few exceptions. Bill Clinton won in '92 and in '96, and this had a lot to do with his vice president being the home state senator Al Gore. In 2016, however, Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton by a margin of 61% to 35%. And that is why we are able to call the state of Tennessee and its 11 electoral votes for President Donald Trump. And now closing out at the only poll here that closed at 8:30, we are now on Arkansas with its 6 electoral votes. In 1968, the site only sided with a third-party candidate, George Wallace. Since then, it has gone Republican in 9 of the 12 elections. Since then, it voted Democratic twice for a fellow member of Arkansas, Bill Clinton, and then once for Jimmy Carter. However, in recent elections, it has become a solid red state for Republicans. Republicans have had a giant margin of victory that has been increasing in the past 4 elections, and that is why the state of Arkansas is going to go to President Trump, who won the state by 27 points back in 2016, and it is another safe victory for him there in the state of Arkansas.
All right, so that's a lot of information to throw out at you all at once. We had a lot of states close here. Let's try and make a better understanding of this. Let's send you over to the monitor here and take a look at the states.
Yes, we're going to go over here to the map now. So as you can see right now, while the map is looking really red here, it is definitely, Biden still has a lead, 85 to 61. The key areas that people are looking at, especially both parties, they are looking at these 3 states right here, Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. These states are currently in the process of having their votes being counted, and it is a close one in just about all of them. While Biden still has a very sizable, while he still has a bit more of a margin in North Carolina, that margin will most likely narrow as it has with Florida and Georgia. Currently, as it stands right now, Jacob, where are we looking at in terms of percentage for Florida and Georgia?
Florida right now, 91% of precincts are reporting. Right now, Donald Trump has about a 2-point lead in Florida. 24% of precincts are reporting in Georgia right now, and Donald Trump is up by about 14 points. So really, there's a big gap for Biden to catch up in Georgia, a state that's been relatively close. And there's Florida, which is very close right now. 91% of precincts reporting. It won't be long until I think we see a projection here, because we're starting to run out of spots in Florida for Biden to close that gap.
Absolutely. As Jacob pointed out to me before we started the broadcast, if at any point while I am talking and Florida can be called, he will interrupt me without any warning, and we will be talking about Florida because, like we said, Florida is an insanely crucial state, especially to the Trump administration. As current projections, while a lot of states still need to close and we can't still make predictions for how the night is going to look, there's a lot to process here, but Trump desperately needs to win Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. He needs these states that he won in 2016 in order to have any chance of securing re-election. All the while, Biden has a lot more wiggle room in some of these states over here, as well as these states here. But as we said, it is now too early to call, but we could and most likely will see results coming out of Florida and Georgia relatively soon. And we're now going to head back over to the desk. We will keep you updated on the map as well, and we will keep you updated as the polls continue to close. And we're now back here at the desk.
Yeah, so we're gonna take a little bit of a break here, let you digest some of that information. We'll be back in just a few moments as we get close to the 9 o'clock hour and some more important states close across the country. I hope you stay with us.
Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early.
You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
And welcome back here to our live election coverage. Just a couple of housekeeping items here. No Republican has won the White House without the state of Ohio in presidential politics. Democrats have been able to do it because Republicans sometimes win Ohio over Democrats. We've also seen, of course, that Ohio has voted with the winner in the last 9 presidential elections, at least the last 9. So as of now, Ohio still 50% reporting, Biden up by 11. If things keep up this way, we could be looking at Joe Biden winning Ohio, which is a big statement for Biden.
Absolutely. I think the number one thing here is even if Biden, so basically, you want to definitely focus not just on these lower states over there. You don't want to focus just on your Florida, your Georgias, your North Carolinas. Wisconsin, Michigan, a lot of the states up north, as well as some closer to around the Midwest and lower parts of the country, are still very important to both candidates. Even without Pennsylvania, which, like we said, is most likely a state that we are not going to be able to call tonight with how current projections are, although it did just go up to 13%, which now currently looks like Biden is still leading, but once again, those are the early votes. But Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, those are 3 blue wall states that Trump won by very slim margins, and if Biden is able to win those back from Trump, like in 2016, and he is also able to win some of the other states, which we will touch on later when those polls close and when we have a better idea of what projections could look like, then there are still ways that Trump could win some of the states that he needs, but Biden can still beat him to the 270.
All Biden has to do, and this has been the theme at least before the coronavirus struck, all Biden has to do is win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. If he can flip those 3 states away from the Trump camp and into the Biden camp, that's all the Democrats need to do in order to win the election. Anything else they pick up, Arizona, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Ohio, it's all collateral. It's all additional that they don't really need if they don't need it. We do have a projection.
Yes.
The state of Indiana, it closed at 7 o'clock. We can project Indiana goes for Donald Trump.
Yes, so now currently how it stands, Biden is up still with 85 votes over Trump's 72. I think it's just kind of humorous to talk about now how we're now calling Indiana, even though this was a state that was almost guaranteed for President Trump. It has been a reliably Republican state, and it was one of the first states that closed, and we are only now just calling it. We had more action coming out of Florida and Georgia, 2 states that we did not We had 2 states that we did not think we were going to call very early tonight, but now I think that just shows that anything in this election, anything goes, anything can happen tonight. It's going to be quite an interesting thing to see.
Well, sometimes better late than never.
Absolutely.
Considering we've seen some states get called way too early, and Trump has been out ahead by 20-some points, but it really doesn't seem to matter because they just call the state for Biden anyway. So Indiana goes for President Trump. Right now, in the Electoral College, the way things look right now, 85 votes for Joe Biden, 72 votes for Donald Trump. There's still a long way to go, a lot of states to close across the country as we continue our election coverage here on SUTV. We hope you stay with us as at this point we're going to take a break and be back at the top of the hour for all the states that are closing then. We'll see you in about 5 minutes. Didn't help that my IFB came out right at the end, so I couldn't hear if you were ready or not. And we're back here at the top of the hour, 9 o'clock on the East Coast. 14 states have now closed their polling, and we will get some projections to you and run down through the list in just a moment. Arizona is part of this, and we'll get to that in a moment. Arizona, one of the key states here.
Absolutely.
No matter who...
Yes, no matter who it goes for, Arizona is absolutely a state that both candidates would definitely benefit from winning, especially Joe Biden. I think if Biden wants to have a path to the White House, I think his first stop should really be Arizona, because Arizona opens up a gateway to Michigan, Wisconsin, and PA, which we will talk about more when we go over to the map. However, as it stands right now, Arizona is definitely one of those states that needs to be won by Joe Biden or Donald Trump if they want to have a better chance at the White House. There's a lot of other really crucial states here that just closed. Another one that a lot of people have had their eyes on in this election, especially in the past few weeks, has been Texas. Texas, with its not just its massive count of electoral votes, but also just in recent news with how much of the voter turnout in terms of early voting. And in recent news, Texas Supreme Court had rejected a Republican activist group's wish to throw away 127,000 ballots from Harris County, which is a reliably Democratic county in Texas. And while most projections do see Trump winning Texas anyways, there are still some chances out there that Biden could possibly flip Texas, as he currently is leading right now with 65% of the votes in for Texas. But it is only by 0.1%. Biden only, and that margin has definitely narrowed since the state has counted more votes. Starting off, he had a much sizable margin, almost by 30%, and that just goes to show you how quickly those margins can tighten up, and there is still a long way to go for Texas. We might not have results coming in right away. However, Florida has also now gone up another percentage point. It is now at 92%, as well as Georgia with 31%, and Donald Trump still leads in both of those states.
Well, and you mentioned Texas. Texas is going to be a state we're going to keep our eyes on. But you've talked about this before. It's the mail-in ballots that they're counting first in Texas, which explains why Democrats are out in front, because a lot more Democrats have been mailing in their ballots throughout the month of October. And now that they're starting to get to the voting that's going on today, we're seeing the Republicans start to catch up. We've seen it in Florida. We're starting to see it now in North Carolina as well. We're seeing it in Georgia. So it's going to be interesting to watch, to see the game of kind of cat and mouse between the mail-in ballots that have already been counting and the absentee ballots, and then we get to the live data in the election, in the voting that is going on today. That is going to make or break in some of these races.
Absolutely. And then you also take a look at some states where it's the reverse, where the Republicans have a very healthy lead with early voting, but then it could easily narrow down for the Democrats in states where they are most likely projected to win. Currently, as it stands right now, Michigan only has 15% of its votes in, and Donald Trump is leading by a sizable margin. But as we said, when it comes to these early percentages, a lot of this, especially during this election, are early mail-in ballots, early voting, and it's very rare that you see the Republican have such a large margin early on. So it'll be interesting to see if Biden pulls through and does what the Republicans have been doing and narrowing that margin of victory and seeing which one of them can pull through. Because like we said, Michigan and Wisconsin are two states, especially for Joe Biden, these are the clear states that Biden has. It is his best path to the White House as it stands right now.
All right, let's start running through the order of the states that have now closed at the 9 o'clock hour. We begin with Arizona, and it's 11 electoral votes. The Real Clear Politics average had Biden leading by just about a point coming into election night. Trump won the state by 3 points 4 years ago, and since 1952, Arizona has voted for the Republican in every election except for 1996. They voted for Bill Clinton the last time they voted for a Democrat. They're trying to flip the state tonight. We'll see what happens. No numbers being reported yet in Arizona. Too early to call. On to Colorado, and it's 9 electoral votes. Hillary Clinton won the state in 5 points in 2016. a state similar to Virginia, voted primarily Republican from 1920 to 2004. They voted for Democrats in the last 3 elections, twice for Obama and then for Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. Still no numbers out of Colorado, too early to call there. On to Kansas. Right now, it's 6 electoral votes. Since statehood in 1861, the state has voted for Republican all but 7 times, most recent Johnson in 1964. It's been a long time. Trump won the state by 21 points, the smallest victory for a Republican in the state since the year 2000. 6 electoral votes for Kansas, no projection for Kansas yet. However, we are getting numbers in right now. Biden is ahead by 7 points, 37% of the precincts reporting in Kansas. On to Louisiana, and it's 8 electoral votes. We project Louisiana goes to Donald Trump. Similarly to Kentucky, Louisiana has voted Republican in all but 4 times since 1968. George Wallace in 1968, Jimmy Carter in 1976, and 1992 and 1996, both for Bill Clinton. Trump won the state by 20 points 4 years ago, the largest Republican win since Reagan in 1984. We project Louisiana goes to Donald Trump. On to Michigan, and it's 16 electoral votes. As of now, way too close to call, way too early to call. The Real Clear Politics average had Biden leading by about 4 points coming into tonight. Since 1972, Michigan has voted for 5 straight Republicans, then 6 straight Democrats from 1992 to 2012. The first Republican win in the state since 1988, George H.W. Bush, was Donald Trump 4 years ago. He won the state by a fraction of a percent. And the closest margin in the 2016 election was in Michigan, closest state since 2000, or the closest the state has been since 2000, when Al Gore won the state by 5 points. Too early to call in the state of Michigan. On to Minnesota, and it's 10 electoral votes. Since 1932, Minnesota has voted Republican 3 times. Eisenhower twice in 1952 and 1956, and Richard Nixon in 1972. No projection yet in the state of Minnesota, and it's 10 electoral votes. Too early to call. On to Nebraska, and it's 5 electoral votes. One of the states that can split its electoral votes. Right now, we project that Nebraska will get a majority of the electoral votes in the state of Donald Trump will get a majority of the states in the electoral votes in the state of Nebraska. Since 1968, Nebraska has voted every Republican every time. In 2008, they split their votes. 4 votes for John McCain, 1 for Barack Obama. There's potential that happens again tonight. Trump won a majority of the state by 26 points 4 years ago, the largest win in the state since 1984 when Ronald Reagan won by 42 points. We project at least 4 of the 5 electoral votes in Nebraska go to Donald Trump.
Now moving on to the state of New Mexico. With its 5 electoral votes, it has participated in 27 presidential elections through 2016, and the results of those elections have been split down the middle, essentially. 15 wins for the Democrats in these 27 and 12 for Republicans. However, Democrats have now won 6 of the 7 past elections. This shift is at least partially due to increasing support of the Democratic Party by Latinos in this area. Hillary Clinton defeated Donald Trump by about 8 points here in New Mexico, and that is why we are able to call New Mexico and its 5 electoral votes for Joe Biden. All right. Moving on to the state of New York and its 29 electoral votes. New York has been primarily blue since the Great Depression and has only sided with a losing Republican when it chose the current governor, Thomas Dewey, over Harry Truman in 1948. Hillary Clinton easily defeated Donald Trump in 2016 by 22%, and that is why we are calling the state of New York and its 29 electoral votes for Joe Biden. Moving on to North Dakota. Of the 5 times it has went blue, in 1916 with Woodrow Wilson, but it was not a landslide for the Democratic Party. Today, North Dakota is a very safe state for the Republicans in presidential elections. In 2016, Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton by 63% to Hillary Clinton's 27%, and that is why North Dakota is going to President Trump. Moving on to South Dakota with the same number of electoral votes, 3. South Dakota is once again, like North Dakota, reliably Republican. It has only voted Democratic 4 times, which was most recently 1964 when Lyndon B. Johnson won in a landslide victory. South Dakota is one of the 7 states with the minimum of the 3 electoral votes. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was defeated by a margin of 30 points by Trump, and that is why South Dakota is going to President Donald Trump. Okay. Moving on to the state of Texas, 38 electoral votes. Like we said, this is a huge state for any party. It is the most number of electoral votes next to California with 55. But right now, it is too early to call. As it stands right now, 65%. Biden is up by just 0.6%. That is an even narrower margin than when we had last discussed Texas, and that is why it is too early to call. And now moving on to the state of Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes. It has been Democratic since it turned Democratic during the Great Depression and World War II. The streak was broken in 2016, however, with Donald Trump, who won the state. Like we said, he won these states by a very narrow margin, 0.7% over Hillary Clinton. And this came despite the fact that the polls early on were trailing Hillary to absolutely sweep this state. And that is why right now Wisconsin is too early to call. We have not heard any news coming out of Wisconsin. We have currently no votes, no projections as it stands right now. And that is where it is looking at right now. And then Wyoming, 3 electoral votes. This is another safe place for President Trump. Wyoming is currently a Republican stronghold and has voted Democratic just once since 1952, which was the 1964 landslide for Lyndon B. Johnson. In 2016, Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton by 46%, which was Trump's widest margin of victory in any state, and that is why we are able to call the state of Wyoming for President Trump and those 3 electoral votes. And currently, as it stands right now, Joe Biden is ahead with 119 votes over Donald Trump's 94, but like we said, the margins are narrowing. Those states are drawing closer and closer, and we could see a huge shift coming for either candidate very soon.
One thing we have not talked about yet tonight is the Senate. The Senate is been controversial almost, with Mitch McConnell in charge over the last 4 years under Donald Trump. Democrats need to flip only 3 seats in order to make it, in order to get a majority, as long as Joe Biden wins the presidency. Otherwise, they'll need to flip 4 seats. However, Democrats are under fire in a seat in Alabama with Doug Jones. So if Jones loses that seat, Democrats then need to win 5 seats in order to get control of the Senate. There's a lot that can happen. We do have one important Senate call. We do have a flip that our own Brady Fisher will get to in just a moment, and a lot of other races that have been called so far. There are some out west that are pretty important that have not been called yet, including in Arizona. I think now we're good to go, as long as the earth doesn't fall apart here on my screen. We're good now to go over to Brady Fisher, who has more on the Senate. What you got for us, Brady?
Well, there is no Senate race here tonight in Pennsylvania. There are 35 seats up for grabs tonight. 23 Republican seats are currently up for grabs, while 12 Democratic seats are up for grabs. Right now, Republicans control the majority, 53 to 45 in the Senate, but the Democrats do have some opportunities to take control here tonight. As the results start to pile in, let's get you caught up on all the races that have been called. In New Hampshire, Shippensburg University class of 1969 graduate Jeanne Shaheen has been declared the winner. In Massachusetts, Edward Markey has been declared the winner over Kevin O'Connor. Rhode Island has also been called in favor of Democrat John Reed. Cory Booker has been declared the winner in New Jersey and will hold on to his seat. Virginia will also stay Democratic, as Mark Warner has been declared the winner there. Republicans secure the Senate seats in West Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky, with Shelley Moore, Mitch McConnell, and Bill Hagerty all being declared winners. Democrat Richard Durbin has defeated Republican Mark Curran in Illinois, and Republican Jim Inhofe has already been declared the winner in Oklahoma. As expected, Tom Cotton has won and secured a Senate seat in Arkansas. And just now, we can report that Colorado has flipped seats. Former Governor John Hickenlooper beats Cory Gardner in Colorado. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Brady. And that is a big one. The fact that John Hickenlooper, the former governor of the state, he ran for president for realistically about 5 minutes this year. He started his campaign in March of 2019, ended it in August before there were any primaries in 2019. But he is going to flip that seat, the first flip potentially of many, and we've got a long way to go. We'll talk to Brady throughout the evening as Senate races close around the country. We hope you stay with us. We're going to take another break. We'll be back in just a moment with more here on SUTV News. Hope you stay with us. And we're back for our live continuing coverage here of the 2020 election. There is a lot going on in the world, as you might know, and we're going to take a little bit of a break here. Not another commercial break or anything, but take a break and take a look at some feel-good stories throughout the night. And Bailey Casada is here with that. Bailey?
Good evening. You're watching SUTV's live coverage of Decision 2020. I'm Bailey Casada. Every hour, I'll be featuring a feel-good story to shine light on some good news during these uncertain times. Now, our first story is about an Oklahoma City couple having a sweet wedding at a Dunkin'. According to CNN, the lovebirds met at the Dunkin' drive-thru in 2017. Employees Sugar Good and customer John Thompson would see each other every morning. Good had memorized Thompson's daily order and his smile. It took Thompson a year to get the courage to ask for her number, but Good beat him to it. Anyone who visited the store the day of their wedding received a free glazed or maple glazed donut. That is truly a day that neither of them will ever forget. Thanks for joining me. Now back to Adam and Jacob at the desk.
Thank you, Bailey. Just got some house news that I decided to mark down. We'll talk about the House in just a little while. We'll bring out Nolan Hoffman and talk about the House as time rolls on. Right now, we're still waiting on a plethora of states to close at this point. Pennsylvania, one of them, Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, New Hampshire, Maine, Michigan, Wisconsin, Missouri, Kansas, Texas, Colorado, Arizona, and Minnesota all have closed at this point, but we haven't heard either any numbers or any definitive results that allow people to project one way or another.
I think this really just goes to show how you never, ever should undermine any election, even if it was a big one like this one, any election, because a lot of these states, we were going in here believing that we would at least have some of these called. However, still, as it stands right now, the map is still mostly too close to call or too early to call. Florida, Georgia are honestly one of the closer states that we might actually have a chance of calling before some other ones. But we will acknowledge that the percentage is continuing to grow, even if it is at a very slow rate. States like New Hampshire were closed a while ago, and yet we still have not seen many results out of that one, even though many would project that it is one of the safer states for the candidates. But yeah, it's just sort of very impressive to acknowledge that how this election is really shaping up to be. It really does come down to just about every single state. Every single state matters. Battleground states are important, but these are the ones that we got to focus on.
Just got told from my ear that Biden was ahead, at least in the mail-in ballots in North Carolina. But at this point, it appears that Donald Trump is doing a lot better with the in-person voting in North Carolina. So at this point, they're still trying to figure things out. 79% of precincts reporting right now. Joe Biden. I don't remember if I said 78 or 79. It's 79% of precincts reporting. Joe Biden with 50.5% of the vote. Donald Trump with 48.4. So Biden leads by about 2 points in North Carolina. And we've talked about this from the beginning. If Joe Biden can win Arizona and Florida, that pretty much puts the election over, out of reach. That would put Joe Biden at 273. However, right now, Florida does not look good for Joe Biden. Right now, Donald Trump is up in Florida. He's been up in Florida. It looks to me like Florida eventually is going to go to Donald Trump, barring a miracle. So that narrows Joe Biden's path a little bit. Georgia is still too early to call. We still haven't gotten enough information in Georgia. North Carolina is close. Ohio is close. And while we may not hear from Michigan, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin, there is still the potential that Joe Biden can win this election tonight if he can pick up Arizona tonight and he can pick up 2 states, either North Carolina and Ohio, North Carolina and Georgia, Ohio and Georgia, or if we are able to pick up Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania tonight, that'll go a long way in giving us a winner tonight.
Absolutely. When you take a look at it, really, there's still no clear winner here. With some elections in the past, one state, normally you are able to call it almost immediately, or sometimes it is a lot easier to call. But here, every state is in play here. There are so many different outcomes. There are so many different paths that this election could take, and While the margin is much more narrow for Donald Trump in terms of how many states need to be won, it is not a clear shot for Biden. There are still paths where if he loses certain states, it is possible that Trump can win re-election.
Before we go to break, how about this? 70% of the precincts reporting in Texas right now. 70%.
72.
Oh, it just went up as soon as I was about to say
72%.
something.
And Biden's still in
The
the lead.
margin was only about 3,000 votes between the candidates. They were almost tied. At this point now, 72% of precincts reporting Joe Biden leads 49.6% to 49 flat for Donald Trump. So 0.6 deciding right now in Texas. Still a long way to go. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment here for our continuing election coverage. Hope you stay with us.
Looking for a way to be informed and get involved? Join Student Media on campus. Whether it's SHIP's Emmy-winning TV station, SUTV, award-winning newspaper, The Slate, university radio station, WSYC 88.7, or nationally recognized Public Relations Society, PRSSA, there's an organization for you. Make the most of your college experience. Visit the 3rd floor of the Cub or Roland Hall for more information. This has been a public service announcement from SUTV.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hopefully, like, this will continue, like.
Right. So we are here now, and we're going to talk about SHIP votes because this is a group that we have here on campus that pushes students to get out and to go vote.
Absolutely, and I think SHIP votes has been more important than ever because young voter turnout has been exponential this election. Young voters have really been turning out here for both candidates, and it's just been really impressive. And it's always great when schools like ours encourage students to go out and vote. And I know today that they were doing a lot to help students get to the polls and make sure that their voices are heard. And we actually now want to take it over to Megan Talley, who has more about SHIP votes and how it has really helped students here make their voices here in this election. Megan?
SHIP Votes is a nonpartisan organization filled with students, faculty, and staff helping SHIP students register to vote and get to the polls. Shippensburg University has even been named a voter-friendly campus by Campus Vote Project and NASPA. In the past, SHIP Votes has taken all of their efforts all over campus, including the Cub and home football games. But due to the pandemic, the group has taken most of its efforts online and even added a special campaign dedicated to student athletes. One SHIP Votes is an idea sparked by the development of One SHIP, an initiative responding to recent events in race and social justice. Through this campaign, 462 student athletes registered to vote for this election, and over 87% of student athletes are registered to vote, with 12 SHIP teams reaching 100%. Today, SHIP Votes sponsored rides to the polls by using the on-campus CAT buses to get students to the town's voting place if they chose to vote in person. Sophomore Kristen Zellner and faculty volunteer David Monahan spoke with me about how they are going to keep these efforts going for upcoming local and state elections.
Hopefully, like, this will continue, like, for the next Senate election, the midterm election, and for local elections as well. But I really think it's up to the departments to see how much they want to, like, continue this and push it up.
I would personally like to see SHIP Votes be an avenue through which, like for example, in local elections, we invite local politicians to the campus to present their selves and their arguments to the students.
Some goals SHIP Votes hope to achieve include getting a polling site on campus and to keep utilizing social media to emphasize how all elections are important, no matter how small. I'll have more from SHIP Votes and many others in the upcoming documentary, SU Votes, the Election 2020, coming later this month to YouTube.
And thank you, Megan, for that. All right, so right now we're still kind of waiting. It's just past 9:30 here on the East Coast, and Joe Biden, just taking a look here at the Electoral College numbers, Joe Biden with 122 electoral votes, Donald Trump with 92 at this point. And we're going to take another break here, and we'll be back in just a little bit with more. Stay with us. We're back now here, 9:40 Eastern Time. We're 20 minutes away from more states closing as we get closer and closer to the West Coast. Some of the states that are closing in the 10 o'clock hour: Utah, Iowa, Nevada, Montana. So only a few states close here at the 10 o'clock hour, but at this point, I can't really say that any of them will have a big effect on the presidential election at this point, just because really it doesn't. There haven't been any tight battles within the states.
Oh, absolutely not. That's what I say. I mean, if these states are called, but yes, but a lot of these states have not yet closed.
Got to cut you off here. Breaking news: Colorado, Biden. Colorado and its 9 electoral votes go to Joe Biden. So, Joe Biden now with 131 electoral votes, Donald Trump now with 92. Still a lot more to call, though. Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, New Hampshire and Maine, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Missouri, Kansas, Texas, Arizona. Arizona hasn't even reported any results yet, and they closed 41 minutes ago. It's going to be a long night for the people out west.
Now, they did express with Arizona, a lot of updates did say that Arizona, most likely, we would not hear results until at least an hour after the polls had closed. So around 10 o'clock is where we'll finally start seeing some numbers come out of Arizona. But it could end up being like Florida, like Georgia, where even though there's that good hour after they've closed, it could still end up being anything like that. And we are now actually just hearing there is breaking news going on right now. There is protest, and there currently are fights going on at the White House right now between Antifa and Black Lives Matter. So already, before there is even a winner called, violence is already starting to occur. The biggest talk here, I think, with this election has been a peaceful transition of power, no matter who wins. A lot of the candidates have been really expressing that no matter who wins, we have to remain calm, we have to stay peaceful. With how bad this year has been in terms of violence and protests and everything, I think now is the time that people is very strongly encouraged that people remain calm, no matter who the winner is. Keeping the peace is the best option for everybody.
With that, let's talk about the House. We do have some projections with the House at this point, as well as who's going to be in control of the House for the next 2 years. Nolan Hoffman's at the board with more. Nolan, what you got for us?
There are a lot of critical House seats up for grabs during tonight's election that a lot of people are going to be watching closely. It's worth noting the Democrats are expected to keep control of the House after capturing 40 House seats in the 2018 midterm elections. On the other hand, Republicans are just hoping to chip away at their current 35-seat disadvantage. At the moment, with 350 seats remaining in tonight's House race, Democrats have won 38 seats, and Republicans currently have 55 seats as we continue to move forward as more and more races are coming in. Arizona's 6th district between Republican David Schweikart and Democrat Hyrule Trimpany is shaping up to be a close race. Timperini poses as a threat to Schweikart, who has been dragged down by an ethics scandal that forced him to burn through most of his campaign funds on lawyers. Regardless, the Republicans still do hold a 12-point registration advantage, and to flip it would require a big blue wave. Schweikart currently has a 57% chance to win, and Timperini has a 43% chance, according to the website 538. The polls for that district close at 9 p.m., and some results are expected to come in starting around 10 p.m., and I will have those updates for you as they come up next around 10:40. Next up in the House race for New Jersey's 2nd district between Democrat Amy Kennedy and Republican Jeff Van Drew. Van Drew originally got elected as a Democrat in 2018, but decided to flip to the Republicans a year later during President Trump's impeachment hearings. Donald Trump did, in fact, win this district in 2016, but the big question is, how will moderate voters feel about Van Drew switching parties? The polls for this race closed at 8 p.m., and we do have some updates for you. According to the New York Times, Van Drew is leading Kennedy at the moment with about a 5-point lead, with 68% of the vote currently in. We will keep you updated as results keep coming in. Another close House race that is going to be interesting to watch in this race is Texas' 24th district between Republican Beth Bandutti and Democrat Candace Venezuela. as after Democrats kind of surprised themselves with how well they did in the Texas suburbs in 2018, this district in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area is now a majority non-white, and GOP Representative Kenny Merchant is now retiring. Democrats have said they are excited about their nominee, Venezuela, who has compelling life story that does include being homeless as a child. Republicans see a district that favors Trump, and Venezuela is going up against the former Irving mayor, who is a better-known candidate at this point in time. The race was projected to be a really tight one, and the projections were absolutely true. Currently, with 84% of the vote in, Van Duny leads Venezuela by about 1 percentage point. I'll keep you updated as the results pour in for Texas' 24th district House race. Further on in Texas' 10th district, it's another close race between Republican Michael McCaul and Democrat Mike Singal. With the results pouring in, according to the New York Times, Michael has a very narrow 1-point lead against Singal with 78% reported. I am going to keep you updated with all of these close races and other potential close races as the night continues to move along.
All right, thank you, Nolan, for that about the House. One note about the House is it's just come through on my screen. Ilhan Omar, the Democrat from Minnesota's 5th Congressional District, will win re-election in that seat. Also, CNN reports that unlike North Carolina, the early votes in Ohio are going to make up more than what is left to count in the state right now, which in theory would help Joe Biden. As of now, 64% of precincts are reporting right now, and Joe Biden has an itty-bitty lead over Donald Trump right now, 49.5% to 49.2%. It's roughly about 8,000 votes separating these two candidates.
I mean, yeah, I think when you look at Ohio, we've been focusing so much on these states that it's very likely in this election that one state that everyone has just kind of not been paying attention to comes out of nowhere and completely changes the outcome of how the rest of the night is going to play out. And with that projection from CNN and currently how it is looking right now, there is a chance that Ohio could go blue. And if that is the case, that could definitely change a lot of how the rest of the night is going to look, because once again, Ohio has voted with the winning candidate just about in every election. And if Biden wins Ohio, who knows what that could mean for Trump as well as for the rest of the night.
It's going to be a long night.
Absolutely.
And now at this point, we're going to go to Patrick Ramsdale, who had the chance to sit down with a member of SGA here at Shippensburg University, Seth Edwards, and we get his thoughts on the election here tonight. Here's Patrick with more.
I'm here with Seth Edwards, the student trustee for SGA. Seth, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Patrick, thank you for having me.
So we're going to get started here. As a member of SGA, it's not easy going into trying to get into any sort of position in any office, regardless of scale, whether it be federal, state, even just county, or even just at a school. And though you weren't elected, you were appointed by Governor Wolf. Can you just tell me what that process was and how difficult it was and what was something that you learned from it?
Absolutely. When I was looking at the position when it opened, this was a very close and short notice sort of thing. So I had actually not planned on applying for this position in my previous years on campus, because I actually wasn't going to be eligible. But when my predecessor decided to run for student government president, that position opened. So it was definitely difficult, because I had to quickly understand, am I truly prepared for this position, and understand what it entails. I felt confident, though, to apply because of my previous experience on campus when I was a vice president of external affairs for Student Government Association, and also a part of many other clubs and organizations where I held certain leadership roles or was able to observe other leaders in those roles. So when I applied, it was something that I felt I was truly ready for and truly wanted to do as well. It was a very intense process, a lot of meetings and interviews and such, but I was very fortunate enough to be recommended by university administration and then Governor Wolf confirming my appointment of the position.
So talking more about voting now, it's sort of civic duty for Americans. It's something that's very important, especially for young adults like ourselves. Why is it so important for people to go out and vote?
Absolutely. I think, it's one of those things where, to be perfectly honest, before I was a college student, I really had never even thought about the voting process, elections. Granted, I wasn't 18 or I wasn't able to vote until my last year of high school. So getting into college, that was when I started to really, be able to do that. And I think it's extremely important because I don't think a lot of people truly understand just how great of a privilege it is and a right it is for us in our country to be able to vote, because many people across the world, unfortunately, do not have that. So when you look at it from that perspective, you start to think about just how much of an impact you actually hold and can and bring on for your future and those of your concerns future. So when I got involved with Ship Votes in my freshman and sophomore year, I found that I was becoming a lot more educated on the matter of voting, and working our way up to the presidential election. I realized how important it was at that point, because this was going to be the first time I could vote in a presidential election. So I think it's important for people to vote, get out and be educated on voting, especially by our lovely Ship Votes on campus, because once you're educated and you understand the process and also the gravity it holds, it's a lot easier and a lot less nerve-wracking to go out, register, find out exactly your polling station, or if you need an absentee ballot, and then make that choice on who you want to vote for regarding on your concerns for the future. So I think it's extremely important for students and everyone to vote, because it is a absolutely just totally underestimated right, I think, in our generation. So I think it's wonderful to see a lot of our students register to vote and getting out there.
So speaking of Ship Votes, they've done an outstanding job on campus, getting students registered, getting students informed on things they may have not known about with the voting process, the presidential election. Can you just tell me, what do you have to say about Ship Votes and what they've been doing on campus?
Absolutely. I got involved as Ship Votes and as a democracy fellow back in my last semester of my freshman year, and then I really got into it my sophomore year. And as their work has just been extremely fabulous on campus. It started out as a small initiative to get students to understand and be educated on voting, as we would register them at tables that we would do tabling on campus, and just meet students, talk to them, get them to understand, the smaller facts and such things that you need to know when it comes to registering, or where to go to vote. But their work now has, especially because of the presidential election, it's really been, working up to that point. And I've noticed, especially this year, that they've been bringing in a lot more students and educating them, helping students register, and getting them exactly, to that point. You register the student, let them know where they have to go, or have the process of getting an absentee ballot, and then their work stops at that point, because that's the next, that's a student's choice in terms of who they want to vote for. But they have done an amazing job on getting every student who wants to learn a little bit more on the process, if they're maybe they're registered and they just don't know. So they've done a fabulous job for the past 2 years, I know, where I've been active in it on campus, working up to this point. And I've known plenty of students who have said personally that they were able to register because of the education given out by Ship Votes right on our campus.
And regarding students, this is such an important election for young adults and students in particular. Can you just talk a little bit on why this is such an important, why this election is so important for students and even universities as a whole?
Absolutely. So this is, as you said, it's an extremely important election. And I believe it's very important because of a variety of different problems and issues that students are well aware of, and some that students are just becoming aware of. We are a generation, like that I said earlier, are extremely underestimated. I think a lot of people take us to be at this point of, well, they don't understand, and they probably won't, right? So that's the thing I think is extremely wrong, because I think many of us in our generation are becoming increasingly educated on voting, and also the issues that we want to see worked on, because it's our future, of course, and it's also for some of us, you're either voting for, you're voting for yourself, but you might also be voting for those at home, because whatever issue you're mainly focused on, you want to see that worked on. So I think this is an extremely important election because, well, of course, whoever becomes elected, that's 4 years. So you want to look at this and think, the issues and concerns that you have as a person, how do you want to see that worked on for the next 4 years? And also, we're in an unprecedented year. 2020 has been full of surprises, of course. So you have to also understand, now that we've seen just what can happen like that, with example of the pandemic we're in right now. How has that been handled? Do you approve of the way it's been handled? And can you trust in your candidate to handle another surprise like that in the next 4 years? So I think it's increasingly popular for people of our generation to really start thinking about these issues that could come up that no one's talking about right now, that they're coming up in the future. So I think that's one of the main reasons why this election is very, very important for our generation and others. One of many reasons, that's for sure.
And finally, a third-party candidate has never won the White House. Do you think that's something that is a possibility and something that we could see within maybe even our lifetime?
Well, it's definitely something that has been on the minds of many and for many years as well. I think that a third-party candidate ticket is something many people have always looked at, and many people have also always voted for third parties. Unfortunately, like you said, we've never seen a third party candidate win the White House. I think it could be something that is definitely, though, in our future, something to look at, because as we go on, you often see many students that I've spoken to as well, perhaps they don't like the two primary candidates who are on the ticket. And I think it's something that they often resort to, is looking at a third party. Now, there's differing views on those tactics there. But I think as we go on, especially moving into future elections, I think people will start to look at third-party candidates as a legitimate possibility and choice, right? So as long as we can, or as long as we look into the future as the point of going where more and more people are starting to vote for third-party candidates because perhaps they are not as interested in the main two on the ticket, it could be something that we start to see maybe that creates to hold more weight in the future. So it's definitely, I would never say that it's impossible, but I would say that as we go on and we see more and more people who are becoming increasingly interested in third-party candidates for a variety of reasons, it's possible to see a future where a third-party candidate would win the White House. A historic moment if that was to be, who knows? I would honestly, it'd be an interesting thing to see in our lifetime, which I think could very well be possible.
All right, well, Seth, I'd like to thank you for joining us on SUTV News. I'm going to send it back to Jacob and Adam for the live election coverage.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick, indeed. So we are just about 2.5 minutes away from 4 more states closing: Iowa, Montana, Nevada, and what's the last one? Utah. There we go. So let's talk about North Carolina here for a bit. Right now, 84% of the precincts are reporting for the presidential race. Donald Trump is down right now. Joe Biden leads by about 0.6% over Donald Trump, 49.7 to 49.1, just about 30,000 votes separating them. I want to talk, about the Senate here. So let's pull up the graphic between Cal Cunningham and Thom Tillis, if we can, here between the Democrat and Republican, because this is a real close race between these two guys.
Absolutely. I mean, you take a look here right now. Currently, as it stands, these two are essentially neck and neck. Thom Tillis right now is, as it's projected by the New York Times, is only up by about 82 votes as it stands right now, and that number could change drastically. But these two are neck and neck. This is arguably one of the closest Senate races that we have here tonight, and it just so happens to come from the state where it is extremely close for the presidency as well.
Yeah, so Tillis, the incumbent who won the seat back in 2014, the former state representative, Cal Cunningham, a former state senator and an Army veteran. Tillis tested positive for the coronavirus within the last month of the race at a point where we had, well, that's not what we were supposed to look at. Hi there. when we had a string of Republicans test positive for the coronavirus, including the president. Meanwhile, Cal Cunningham at the same time was battling back the flames of an affair that had broken into the press and some people thought had completely ruined his chance of making it to the Senate. But I mean, it's a small busload of people away from changing right now.
Absolutely. The numbers just changed again. Thom Tillis was in the lead, and now Cal Cunningham is back in the lead. And this one's by a slightly bigger margin, by just about 4.
Big call here. Sorry to cut you off. Lindsey
Go ahead.
Graham, South Carolina, he will win that seat. A big call in South Carolina, a seat that Democrats thought they might be able to flip. Instead, not so much. South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, he is going to retain that seat, facing off against Jamie Harrison. A very close race in the Senate. There you see Lindsey Graham, the incumbent. He's been in there for a while, since 2002. That's when he first won. Jamie Harrison, the former chair of the Democratic Party in South Carolina. We project Lindsey Graham wins that seat in South Carolina, and the pathway for Democrats to win the Senate is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking now as polls continue to close.
Absolutely. It is really just, I mean, it's really starting, the Democrats are definitely starting to bite their nails a bit here, not just in the presidency, but also in, yes, these Senate and House races. And now, literally, Thom Tillis is back on top again with just about, I would say just about 10, less, not even, about, let's just say, about 4,000 votes, roughly, give or take. But Thom Tillis now is back in the lead. But once again, it is a 0.1 margin difference here. So it keeps changing here. It really is probably going to come down to 1,000 or so votes, give or take, maybe even hundreds. We are not sure yet. But yes, this really does start to pose an issue for the Democrats in the Senate as well, now that they've lost South Carolina, which they felt was a very, very safe spot, or at least they felt was a safe turnaround
We
for them.
have a call. This not related to the states that have already closed. We have a call, the state of Kansas. We can now project Kansas goes to Donald Trump. Kansas and its 6 electoral votes will continue the Republican trend in the heartland, in the flatland. Kansas goes red. Donald Trump wins Kansas. Now at the map, 131 for Biden, 98 for Trump. It is almost 10:02 here on the East Coast. 4 more states have closed. We'll get to them in a moment. But a big, not really a big win, an expected win, shall we say, in Kansas for Donald Trump.
Yeah, Kansas was, once again, one of those states where it took a while here to call, and we were definitely waiting for results to come in. But it was one of those states that most, if not all, projections and early predictions had Donald Trump winning. These were easy wins for him back in 2016, and as we can see now, he once again continues to win that state. It was a very safe call for the Republicans. But we now are here at 10:02 on the East Coast, and we still have not heard from a lot of big states. I know Florida still currently sits at 93% of the votes in total. So, and we have yet to see anything. But like we said, there are going to be votes coming in now from Iowa, from Montana, from Nevada, and from Utah.
And we'll get to them in just a bit. I want to focus in on Ohio because we talked about before we went to the interview that Joe Biden was up in Ohio. I think we had about 64% of precincts reporting. Right now we're at 69% of precincts reporting, and Donald Trump is up by almost 2.5 points over Joe Biden in the state of Ohio. We talked about earlier that CNN said that Biden really should perform better now because they appear that there were more early votes left to count compared to in-person votes. Well, that theory really hasn't panned out yet. Is Donald Trump is up and pulling away in Ohio. Still no concrete stuff from Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin at this point, and haven't been able to make a call in Minnesota, in Missouri, which is surprising considering how Republican that state has been over the last several years. However, no call there yet. No call in Texas, which is expected. However, Donald Trump is ahead of Joe Biden in Texas. Florida really hasn't budged, although Biden has been able to pull away a little bit in Florida. The percentage reporting still has not changed. Georgia, about half the precincts are reporting Trump up big. North Carolina, 84% of the precincts reporting Biden up by a hair. Maine, 10% of the precincts reporting Biden up by a hair, and New Hampshire, and its 4 electoral votes, about a quarter precincts reporting, and Biden is up by a decent bit. At this point, let's run down through the list of states we can call here at the 10 o'clock hour. We begin with Iowa, and it's 6 electoral votes where this chaos all started back in February when everything broke and we didn't get a count in the Democratic caucus until 4 o'clock the next day. It was a mess, and some at that point called it the end of the Democratic Party with this election because of that and because of impeachment. Right now, too early to call in the 6 electoral votes in Iowa. Since 1988, the state has voted Democrat all but 2 times, for Bush in 2004 and for Trump 4 years ago. It's voted with the winner in 6 of the last 7, and the only outlier being the year 2000. The state voted for Al Gore. George Bush won the presidency. Too early to call in Iowa and in Montana. 3 electoral votes. Since 1952, Montana has voted for 2 Democrats. 1964, Lyndon B. Johnson, he's been the theme a lot tonight, as well as Bill Clinton in 1992. Trump won the state by 20 points, the largest win for a Republican since 2004. 3 electoral votes we cannot call yet. There's also a pretty close Senate race out there that we will talk about as time goes on.
Now moving on to Nevada with its 6 electoral votes. Although Republicans were dominant in this state from the 60s to the late 80s, the influx of the population has definitely turned Nevada since then to the Democrats. In 2016, Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by a margin of 48% to 46%, which isn't a lot, but still Nevada has been reliably Democratic for the most part in the past couple of elections. This was only the second time since 1908 that people of Nevada sided with the candidate that did not win the presidency. The other time was in 1976 when they voted for Gerald Ford over Jimmy Carter. But right now, Nevada is too early to call. We have not seen any votes coming out of there yet, but it is one of those states where we could possibly see results coming relatively later on into the night. Then we move on to Utah with its 6 electoral votes. Utah has voted for Democrat Franklin Roosevelt 4 times in 1932 through 1944, and his successor, Harry Truman, in 1948. Aside from that period, however, the state has only voted Democratic twice. The last time that they voted Democrat was in 1964. Once again, if you're keeping along at home, Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964 after he won in a landslide victory over Barry Goldwater. In 2012, Mitt Romney defeated Barack Obama by 72.8% to 24.8% with Obama. This was the largest margin of victory in any of the 50 states since Ronald Reagan beat Walter Mondale here from 74.5% to 24.7% in 1984. Donald Trump did win this state in 2016. However, he did fail to receive a majority of the votes, winning 45.5% to 27.5% over Hillary Clinton. But right now, as it stands, Utah is too early to call, similar to every other state that we have here at the 10 o'clock hour.
And we're getting no numbers right now from any of these 4 states. And a lot of the other states that closed earlier, we were at least getting something right when polls closed, at least something after the first 5 minutes. We've got nothing. We still also haven't heard anything from Arizona way out west. Other than Iowa, the West Coast has pretty much been dead silent so far through our election coverage.
I had mentioned it earlier, and I definitely think it's interesting just to look at the fact that you take a look at the past 2 elections. So you look at 2012 and you look at 2016 in terms of when results were coming in and when it was easier to call. In 2012, there was a winner by around midnight. So around 11:30, that is when they were able to call the presidency for Barack Obama and his reelection. In 2016, we were not able to call Donald Trump as the winner until 2:30 in the morning, around 3 a.m. And now, currently as it stands, we have no idea when we might be able to call a presidency unless these big states here really start opening up and we really start seeing results coming out of here, which actually, now that I look at it, Arizona is starting to show results. We are now starting to see results out of Arizona, 69% right now, and Joe Biden is leading 55% over Donald Trump's 43.7%. But like we said, this is at 69%, so we are unclear if this will possibly narrow down.
That's a big jump right out of the gate, and that's a big margin. For Trump to be up, or for Biden to be up that much. Update in Ohio, right now Donald Trump is up by almost 3 points over Joe Biden. That's gone up to 70% reporting. Pennsylvania, we're at 23% reporting. Donald Trump is up by 5, almost 6 points here in Pennsylvania. Adam will send you here to the board to take a better look here. And North Carolina, it's about 300 votes right now deciding who's ahead. Biden's up for now. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You take a look here, and you can definitely see that even though Joe Biden does have the lead here, it has never been safe, even if the Democrats have the lead. If you look back at 2016, Hillary Clinton definitely did have the lead. However, that quickly changed as the night went on. But as we see it right now, Trump is staying strong in the states that he was able to secure back in 2016. So you go through the Midwest here, up and around here. But like we said, all eyes still are on Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and now we are possibly looking at Ohio for possibly going to Donald Trump. However, like we said, with the early votes, considering that they will be the deciding factor in Ohio, it is still interesting to see if the Democrats can pull through, because after all, in this election, when it came to early and mail-in votes, it was the Democrats leading, and that is where a lot of those big early Democratic margins have been going to. They have been going to the Democrats because more Democrats have been doing the early votes. However, as it looks like in Ohio, early voting is possibly going to Trump, but it will be interesting to see if Biden can turn that around. And now with Arizona here, if Biden wins Arizona and he keeps that very sizable margin that he has right now with the 69% votes that have been totaled, then we could possibly see Biden still have a very strong head in this race. After all, Arizona is one of those states where if Biden wins, it gives him a much clearer path to the presidency than Donald Trump. However, with Trump still leading in these three battleground states here, it still is anybody's game. And it could possibly look like if these three states are called soon and they do go towards the Republicans, then it might be a possible repeat of 2016 with Trump leading up in the polls. And we are now going to return back to the desk.
Yeah, so while you were up there, some more results came in for North Carolina. Trump has pulled away now. Still no call yet. New York Times says there's a 95% chance Trump wins Florida, a 95% chance that Trump wins North Carolina, an 83% chance now that Trump wins Georgia. No projection on Arizona, Ohio, PA, Michigan, Wisconsin, or Minnesota. We'll take a break. We'll be back in just a moment here from our continuing coverage. Hope you stay with us.
Looking for a way to be informed and get involved? Join Student Media on campus. Whether it's SHIP's Emmy-winning TV station, SUTV, award-winning newspaper, The Slate, university radio station, WSYC 88.7, or nationally recognized Public Relations Society, PRSSA, there's an organization for you. Make the most of your college experience. Visit the third floor of the Cub or Roland Hall for more information. This has been a public service announcement from SUTV.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How would you not love him?
Are you having a hard time focusing on your work? Why not check out the Ezra Lehman Memorial Library? The library has many resources like the IT desk on the main floor. For computer assistants, see the experts. Need to print in black and white or color? Don't worry, the library offers both options on different floors. You can use the bottom floor for group work and the top floor for when you need silence. Don't forget to stop by Starbucks. Check out library.ship.edu for more information. This is a public service announcement from SUTV.
We're back here at for our election coverage, and now we're going to go back to Megan Talley, who was able to sit down with a political science professor here at Shippensburg, Allison Dagnes, and Megan's got more on that now. Megan.
The 2020 election has been one unlike any other. With the country being as divided as ever, as well as being in a global pandemic, there's a lot to uncover when it came time for Americans to hit the polls. Dr. Allison Dagnes spoke with me a few weeks ago about the election and how the United States got to this point and why our voices matter.
Because with that absence of trust and with all of the anger that is being fomented by the highest levels of our government and by the deep distrust of our government that's being assuaged by our government, that leaves a lot of room for people to lose faith and trust and become violent and become enraged and believe things that aren't necessarily true. And so this election actually is a little bit different. I think all elections are important to vote in because voting is it is a luxury that we have that a lot of people fought and died for. And so it's really important that everybody votes. But this year it's even more important because when our democratic system falls apart, you don't get an alert on Twitter that says democracy's over. It's a very slow burn, and you may not even notice it until it's gone. And I am authentically concerned that that's the direction in which we are moving.
Here in Pennsylvania, over 2 million people have cast their vote by mail, accounting for 73% of those that were requested. During the 2016 election, a little over 200,000 Pennsylvanians voted by mail. Dr. Dagnes explained that there should be nothing to worry about if you filled out a ballot from home.
Mail-in balloting is actually incredibly safe. There are tracers on these. So there was the case, I believe it was New Jersey, where, no, it was Virginia, it was Northern Virginia, where 1,000 citizens in Northern Virginia actually got 2 ballots. And the right just went, well, that's it, it's all fraudulent. And the answer is like, nope, actually, what the good news about mail-in balloting is that there's no way for people to vote twice. You could try, but then when you send 2 ballots in, you then therefore have committed a crime. And so you can't do that. And that's the great thing about mail-in voting. It is actually incredibly safe because it is traced. There are trackers on it.
This year, Governor Wolf made some changes by having the state pay for postage, as well as allow voters to get their ballots in before Friday instead of today. Locally, there have been some concerns over counting ballots. In both Cumberland and Franklin counties, it was announced that all mail-in ballots will be counted starting tomorrow instead of tonight due to the large number of ballots. And while that sparked outrage with county citizens, Governor Wolf and PA Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar, the 2 counties decided not to change, even though they were originally going to count on election night. So it may be a little while until we know who wins PA, but it sure is to be close. Reporting for SUTV News, I'm Megan Talley. Let's send it back to Adam and Jacob at the desk.
Thank you, Megan. We're getting some reporting in now from Iowa. We're up to 12% of the vote in Iowa right now. Biden up 64% to 34%. Montana reporting as well. Trump up 62% to 34%. Biden leads in Maricopa County in Arizona right now by 10 points. 3/4 of the vote estimated to be counted so far. If that margin holds up, it's going to be pretty difficult for Trump to win the state of Arizona. We'll talk to that in a minute. Now some housekeeping things. We start in the Senate. We go to Alabama. Tommy Tuberville, the former football coach for the Auburn Tigers, has won and defeated Doug Jones, who won in a special election in 2017 to take the place of Jeff Sessions, who went to be Trump's attorney general. We project Tuberville wins the seat, which means of everything we've been able to project so far, 1 Democrat flip, that's John Hickenlooper winning the seat in Colorado over Cory Gardner, and now this flip from Democrats to Republicans with Tuberville winning the seat. So, no net gain yet. Democrats still need 3 seats, 4 if Biden loses the election. It's a long way to go.
Yeah, it is a very long way to go for just about everybody. And also, speaking of a long way to go, we will now have to wait a little bit longer to hear results coming out of Nevada with its 6 electoral votes. As it is now, there have been some polls that there is a 1-hour extension in Clark County, and that does include Las Vegas. So we will now most likely not be hearing any results coming from Nevada until around 11 o'clock, a little bit after.
We do have a projection of a House race that is kind of important. It's in Florida. It's the Florida 26th seat, a seat held by the Democrats, Debbie Murkowski-Powell. She's the incumbent. She has lost that seat to Carlos Gimenez, the mayor of Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County has been relatively weak in support for Biden, and it could cost him Florida. And, well, this kind of puts 2 and 2 together with Gimenez, the mayor of Miami-Dade County, now going on to flip this seat for the Democrats. We are able to project, though, that Democrats are going to win the House. We continue to hold the House tonight and pick up at least 5 seats. But now they've lost one here in Florida. So a lot to unpack. We'll continue to take a look at these things as things continue to go. We're going to take a break here, and we'll be back in just a little while with more. Hope you stay with us. And we're back here at SUTV News for our live continuing coverage of the 2020 election. There's a lot that's happened so far, and we'll get to a recap once we hit the 11 o'clock hour. But at this point, let's send it back over to Bailey Casada for another feel-good story here through all the chaos. Bailey?
Thanks for sticking with us throughout the night for this feel-good segment. For an hour, we'll have a young girl who wants to bring smiles to kids. Empathy can be a tough lesson to teach a child, yet for 6-year-old Charlotte West, it came naturally. When she heard of the kids affected by the Colorado wildfires, she was eager to help. Charlotte's mom, Christine West, reached out to the Grand Foundation to see if there was a need for stuffed animals and blankets. The foundation responded that 10 to 15 children would love to have them. So Charlotte, using her allowance money, went online and picked out 15 stuffed animals for those kids. She's even writing personal cards to children she's never met. The stuffed animals should arrive by the end of the week. And I suspect those toys will bring smiles to many kids. Thanks for joining me. Now back to Adam and Jacob at the desk.
Thank you, Bailey. Nice little story there.
I know, isn't it nice to hear good news? Isn't it nice to hear something that puts a smile on your face, especially this year?
Seriously,
it's
been a long one.
Not even focusing on the election. Like, you just take a look at everything that's happened this year, and everybody just needs a good smile every now and again, and that definitely was a nice story to hear.
It's certainly nice to hear something like that every once in a while, and I'm glad we brought that segment in for us tonight for us all to take a breath before we dive right back into the chaos that's going on. So we're still waiting and doing a lot of it right now with all of these states that we're still outstanding. Maine, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, Texas, Arizona, Utah, and Montana. States that have yet to close: Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Idaho, Alaska, and Hawaii. We won't call Alaska and Hawaii until tomorrow, also known as midnight, and then 1 p.m. In the morning, or 1 a.m. in the morning. There's still a long way to go. Right now, it feels like a replay of 2016, where the Democrat candidate is ahead, and out of left field, here comes Trump. He's ahead. He's going. Right now, we're still waiting, though, because we don't know the outcome yet. That's the thing.
Like, I think I mentioned it over at the map, and I'm going to say it again. This could possibly be another repeat of 2016, because we were in a very similar place back in 2016 in terms of how the map was looking. I think we had a few more states called back in 2016, which gave us a much better idea. But once again, we still started off 2016 with the Democrats having a solid lead, and then slowly, as the night began to progress, Donald Trump and the Republicans started to really make their way through and win the states they needed to, and defy the expectations and defy those early predictions that a lot of those states had for Hillary Clinton. And I don't know and obviously we cannot call anything. But if it does play, if some of these states play out like they did in 2016, we could possibly be seeing a re-election for President Trump.
This is coming out of Nevada, where the polls have been extended until 11 o'clock now. Because of a lot of people showing up to vote in Clark County, specifically in Las Vegas out there. Trump campaign officials say they were optimistic about the numbers they were seeing in Hispanic voters in Nevada, following the same trend that we've seen in Florida. And if it's anything like Florida, that could put Nevada into play for the Republicans, something we didn't expect to see based off of polling numbers coming into tonight and based off of the result that we saw in 2016.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think now what the key demographics here that the Republicans have definitely been targeting, and I believe is now starting to pay off for them, is the Hispanic, is the minority groups, is the people of color there. These are the votes that are really going to count in this year's election. And it is clear now, at least from what we're seeing from Florida, though we are not able to call it yet, and we have still not seen any movement out of Florida. It is still stuck at the 94% it has been at for just about more than a half hour now. And it's definitely, we're noticing that Biden is trailing behind in those demographics, and Trump is actually up. And if it does play out in Nevada, and Trump does have that Hispanic support in Nevada, then yes, we could see the Republicans take Nevada, which is something that we were not actually projecting. It was definitely not something that we considered, definitely since it's so close to California, to Oregon, those definitely reliable Democratic blue states. And if Nevada turns red and Biden loses his turn in Arizona, then it is not looking good for the Democrats.
There's also, of course, the possibility that we tie and we get 269 apiece in the Electoral College and we send this mess to the House and they get to deal with it, in which we'll most likely see, since Democrats hold the House and appear to continue to hold the House throughout this election, if we go to the House, it looks like it's going to be a Joe Biden presidency, but we have to get to that point first.
Absolutely.
And right now there are still too many pathways for us to say definitively whether one candidate is going to win over another or whether we're going to see a tie.
You know, it was a lot more reassuring going into the night when ideas of one state deciding the entire election and the idea of the entire election being a tie were the lesser of the two evils, and like they were the least likely outcomes. However, as it stands right now, as it is looking, I grow fearful because it is looking like those outcomes are starting to become more and more likely, which I think is the last thing anybody wants. We definitely do not want a repeat of the election from 2000 against George W. Bush and Al Gore, where not only was it too close to call, but people had to wait 35 days, more than a month after the election after election night, to find out the results, and it all came down to Florida, and 537 votes. George Bush won the presidency in 2000 because of Florida with 537 votes. And currently, how it's looking, I don't want to pull this card out now. I was going to save it while we were at the map, but I did write out the scenario. I have labeled it the PA nightmare scenario. This scenario basically implies that if the election plays out like 2016, if Biden wins Arizona and Michigan, but Trump wins every other state that he won back in 2016, it will be a tie, 259, and if PA is the only state we cannot call at the end of the night, it all comes down to Pennsylvania.
We'll get back to your crisis when we come back from this break. We'll be back in just a little bit here on SUTV News. Stay with us.
We got a call. Of course we do. Trump wins Missouri. Trump wins Missouri. Please, Florida, move. Still at 94. Texas at 80. Brady, I'll kiss you if Texas goes. If Texas goes blue, I will kiss you, Brady.
And we're back here for more coverage of the 2020 election. We talked earlier about some chaos going on in Washington, D.C. with Antifa, Black Lives Matter protesters and police. To take us and give us a look now at some of the reaction around the country, here is Josie Wilson with more. Josie?
Hello and good evening. I'm Josie Wilson. I'm reporting to you some reactions that are occurring right now surrounding this 2020 decision. Let's take a look at what's happening in Washington, D.C. Hundreds of demonstrators have gathered to protest and pray as they wait for the results in this 2020 election. A crowd gathered at the Black Lives Matter Plaza near the White House. Many are chanting, some are holding signs, and they have removed a Trump banner. Tensions are high, as well as some reactions while we see polls close. While most demonstrators have been peaceful, a disturbance broke out just before 10 p.m. Police were involved and one person was detained. That's all I have for you tonight. Back to Adam.
Thank you, Josie. Still just kind of playing the waiting game at this point.
Absolutely.
We're waiting for some of these states. There are some networks that have called some states that we have not projected yet, and I'm sure it'll be just a matter of time until we do get to those.
Well, absolutely. I think that's the best way to describe every election. It's basically one giant nationwide waiting game. Like everybody is we're just watching the clock, and so that's the thing that surprises many. Even though states close, a lot of states close at the same time. Very different rules and procedures, counting votes, and even the states that are easy wins for the candidates still take some time to get results out of, especially in an election with such a massive turnout.
One housekeeping item that I did miss earlier on, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has won re-election for her seat in, I believe, the 14th district in New York, so she will get a second term in the House. We're now going to go over to Megan Talley, who's got more on the college Democrats and the college Republicans here at Shippensburg University. Megan.
This year saw a resurgence in SHIP's political outreach. After the college Republicans and college Democrats disbanded around 2018, students no longer had a place to talk with students of the same political opinion. But just this semester, the college Republicans were reborn, and the Democratic Socialists at Shippensburg University formed a new club designed for students who aren't quite aligned with just the two-party system. Chase Slenker, treasurer for the college Republicans, wants students who identify with the right to feel comfortable with their beliefs.
The reason that college Republicans was created and brought back was to give students, who have a Republican or a conservative viewpoint on politics that kind of have a place to share their voice and to know that they are not alone. Even though Shippensburg actually, if you look at the statistics, has a predominantly or slightly more Republican leaning majority among students, a lot of Republican students often feel as if they're not, actually, in that, academia is, against them. And I would say that that's really not true here on our campus. I think that our professors and faculty do a very good job at taking out any of their own bias, whether it's conservative or liberal leaning, but that in general the college Republicans was reinstated in order to advocate for Republican ideas, values, and candidates, but also to give a place for students to be able to express those views and kind of have a group behind them so they don't feel ashamed in expressing their own political views.
Zoe Williard and Ian Thompson also want to give students a place to belong, as well as open the floor for students who don't necessarily agree with the current Democratic Party.
So democratic socialism is what it sounds like. It's a form of socialism that's inherently democratic. It's all about advocating for a world where all of our lives or our lives are under our own control. It's not dictated by the whims of billionaires or corporations or plutocrats. Everyone, no matter their race, sexuality, age, ability, etc., has unalienable rights that must be respected and protected, and that isn't happening right now. So our goal is to work to make that a reality.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, it's a little bit more of, I'd say like an inclusive and representative group for people who don't just identify as like Democrat or Republican. I think it's definitely like a group for people who don't specifically fit the binary of like the red-blue party.
Both groups are hosting virtual meetings and are welcoming to any SHIP students. Students who are interested in joining either of these groups can log on to campus groups with their university logins and learn more about how to get involved. That'll be it for me tonight. Reporting for SUTV News, I'm Megan Talley, and let's send it back to Jacob and Adam at the desk.
Thank you, Megan. Right before we got to that, we did have a projection. Donald Trump wins the state of Missouri. Not sure if we have a graphic made for it. No big deal if we don't. But Missouri goes to Donald Trump. So the electoral map looks something like this now. 131 for Joe Biden, 108 for Donald Trump. And there's still a long way to go.
Absolutely. Once again, we said it right before, Megan, waiting. The key here is being patient. The key here is waiting out just to see these states move. But once again, the wait is kind of worth it, because as soon as bigger states like North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, once these states once we are able to call these states, it makes the election, it makes tonight a lot more clear. It opens up a lot more possibilities, and it opens a lot more opportunities for both parties to possibly be the winners tonight. But currently, as it stands, there still has been little movement out of Florida, little movement out of Georgia. I believe we are seeing some movement out of North Carolina, but still, as it stands, 93% of the votes in North Carolina, and Donald Trump is leading by 1%, literally 1% with 93% of the votes, 7% still remaining. It's still pretty much anybody's game in North Carolina, even though projections are showing that Trump has the better chance in North Carolina as well as in Georgia and Florida.
We'll just have to wait and see. I've heard in my ear a little bit that the tides are turning. Coming into tonight, Joe Biden was the big favorite. I think he had like a 90% chance to win the election. Not so fast. Donald Trump has caught up. It sounds like he's the favorite at this point going forward. Countries around the world are now betting on Donald Trump winning another 4 years at the White House. And at this point, as we've said all night long, it's just a waiting game. And we'll see if we can name a president tonight, or if we have to wait till later on in the week. Our live continuing coverage continues. In just a little while, we're going to take a breather. We'll be back at the top of the 11 o'clock hour to bring with you some more states that have closed, and continue to take a look at the House, Senate, and a whole lot more. Hope you stay with us. We're back in a bit. Welcome back here to our election coverage, election 2020. Something that just broke through now, talking about the Senate. This is in Kansas. Roger Marshall, the Republican, will hang on to that seat over Barbara Boiler. That race was kind of close in some aspects compared to other races in Kansas, but it was pretty much expected that the Republicans would be able to hang on to that seat. But the number of seats that Democrats have to try and pick up and flip the Senate, that number is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. We have a projection. New Hampshire goes to Joe Biden. The 4 electoral votes in New Hampshire are going blue once again. Joe Biden wins the state of New Hampshire. We've got 5 states closing now here at 11 o'clock on the East Coast. We'll run through them here in a moment. California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and Idaho. But back to the Senate. Democrats need to pick up a lot of seats in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it really is starting, the clock is really starting to tick for Democrats. If they want to win the House, they need to start picking up steam here. And while they need to start really picking it up, and so does Joe Biden. If Joe Biden really wants to win the White House, if he wants to win this presidency and get Trump out of there, he needs to start turning it around in these states like North Carolina, like Georgia, like Ohio, like Michigan. These are states where early projections were showing Joe Biden, and these were states that Biden was feeling confident in. But now, if you look at it, Trump is gaining a bigger margin, of which Joe Biden, while it is still too early to call for a lot of these states, they still need to win back these states in order to win not just the House, but Biden needs to win these states as well to win the presidency.
Right now, we're going to be getting ready to make some projections here, and with that, you're going to see the Electoral College vote shoot up. But really, we're nowhere close to predicting a winner than we were 5 minutes ago before these polls closed. So by no means does this
decide anything.
This really, nothing is out of the ordinary with any of these. Running through out west, just some of the Senate races. Check that. Let's go presidential. California, 55 electoral votes, the biggest electoral prize in the state. No surprise. Joe Biden gets those 55 electoral votes. California's voted for a Democrat in every election since 1992. Clinton won the state by 30 points, the largest Democrat win in the last 5 elections. Joe Biden wins California. Idaho, 4 electoral votes. Trump won the state by 32 points 4 years ago. We project Idaho to Donald Trump. Since 1952, the state has voted Republican in every election except one, 1964, Lyndon B. Johnson. In Oregon, 7 electoral votes. Hillary Clinton won the state by 11 points in 2016, the smallest margin since 2004, with just 4 points. Since 1988, Democrats have won Oregon in every election. We project Oregon will go to Mr. Biden. He'll pick up those 7 electoral votes. Finally, Washington, with the 12 electoral votes. Since 1988, Washington has voted Democrat in every election. That continues tonight. Joe Biden wins the state of Washington and its 12 electoral votes. Clinton won the state by 16 points in 2016. However, there were faithless electors in the Electoral College. 3 went for Colin Powell, the former Secretary of State under George W. Bush, and 1 went for Faith Spotted Eagle. So there's your political trivia for tonight. Nevada, still too early to call. We should finally start to hear some things out of Nevada shortly. But right now, the Electoral College, 205 to 112. There's a lot outstanding, but there's a lot outstanding where Biden is down and Trump is ahead.
Absolutely. Nevada, I want to talk about Nevada here because, like we said, we are going to see results coming out of Nevada relatively soon, possibly in the next 10 minutes. If we are lucky, we could see results coming out of Nevada in the next 10 minutes, but we cannot call anything, obviously. But Nevada is important because the Trump administration announced that they are feeling very confident with Nevada and the Latino vote. And this was a state where not that many people were focusing on it because a lot of people felt that it was going to go to the Democrats. However, if Trump wins Nevada, this once again really does hurt Joe Biden's chances of winning the presidency. Nevada, Arizona, these 2 states were really what a lot of the predictions for Biden, those are what they were built on. That was the crux of a lot of these predictions. And if Nevada goes red and Arizona goes red, then it is looking less and less likely that Biden has a chance to win the presidency. And even though the electoral votes right now have Biden in a sizable lead, again, the states that we just called mean very little in the grand scheme of things, even though California has the most electoral votes of all the 50 states. It still is not that important in the grand scheme of this election because it is one of those states where it was a guaranteed winner, but it is not, and Biden did not have to campaign too hard there in California. But again, the states that we are still waiting to hear results from, those are the states where we need to see if Trump's campaigning and Biden's campaigning paid off, and we will see that.
Let's go to the monitor here and take a look because we're still waiting on Nevada. And as you said, if Trump is able to pull out Nevada, really that could come down to the election if Biden can flip the 3 states we talked about him needing to flip, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. That still doesn't give him enough then if Trump is able to flip Nevada.
No, absolutely. Like, you really take a look at it here. Nevada and Arizona. It is the states that nobody was really paying much attention to that honestly could be the biggest factors in the election this year. Nevada, Arizona. You want to take a look at Michigan and Wisconsin. Again, these states here are states that are important to both candidates. And while they do not seem important in the grand scheme of things, they are absolutely crucial to both candidates here. And if Trump is able to win these states, then it will be a repeat of 2016, where he won a majority of these states. If I'm remembering correctly, Trump won Nevada in 2016?
No.
No, Hillary won
Clinton
Nevada
won
in 2016.
Yep.
So if Trump wins Nevada, then it could be a very big game changer, and it could spell a very different outcome for tonight, and it could spell a repeat of 2016. But once again, the yellow states that you are seeing here are still too close to call, or it is too early to call. And a lot of these states have been sitting at the same percentage of votes since relatively a half hour at the earliest. But currently, what it looks like is Trump is leading in a lot of these states. So, while Florida has been at a standstill with 94%, current projections are showing that Trump could win Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. So
Hold on. Fox News has called Florida for President Trump.
All right,
the first shoe has now dropped. Fox News is calling Florida for President Trump. That is big. It looks like he will take these 29 electoral votes. Donald Trump wins the state of Florida, projected to win by Fox News, and I'm sure every other news network is going to jump on that. It's just a matter of time because Biden was just down too much with too little of the vote outstanding.
It really was looking good there for Biden in the beginning, but like we said, the big part of Florida that people needed to win was the middle area there of Florida, those suburban areas. And as much as Biden has been campaigning with those suburban areas, if it is looking how it is in 2016, Trump is still resonating with those suburban voters. He is still resonating with those neighborhoods, with those suburban areas. And while there is some blue around Tampa and Orlando, Florida is predominantly red here. So it is a safe call that President Trump has won the state of Florida, which is now that is a big, big gain for President Trump now. That is one of those crucial states that he needs in order to win the election. And now that he has it, Georgia and North Carolina could possibly be next for him. But like we said, those are still too close to call, but we are now waiting to see results out of that, and it could be, we might be seeing possible results.
We're going to take a short break. We have a couple of updates on the Senate, including a big one out of Georgia. We're back in just a moment. We'll have Brady Fisher over at the board, and he'll be able to talk to us with the Senate. Stay tuned. We've got more after this.
Utah.
Breaking news. Sorry, right as we're going to break. Utah, President Trump. So Utah will go into the President Trump category. So Utah's 6 electoral votes jump to Donald Trump's column, a state that we really expected him to win. We'll get back to more. We'll get reactions on that. We'll get to the Senate. We'll get to Brady, I promise, in just a moment. We'll take a break this time. If anything else puts to close, we'll wait and see. We'll take the break. We're back after this. One thing here before we go to Brady Fisher and talk about something serious with the Senate. So in New Jersey, they had a referendum to vote on the legalization of recreational marijuana for those 21 years of age or older. That has passed easily. So congratulations to those of you in New Jersey. If you're 21 or older, you can now have weed and not get arrested for it. Now, on to the hard news. Brady Fisher with the Senate. He's got a lot of important calls for us. What you got for us, Brady?
We've announced a lot of winners tonight in the Senate, but there are still a few races that are just too close to call. In North Carolina, Republican Thom Tillis is still holding a slight lead over Democrat Cal Cunningham, with 92% of the state reporting. This is one that we could hear from soon. In Georgia, Republican David Perdue has a nice-sized lead over Jon Ossoff, a lead that is currently at over 10 percentage points. In the special election, we just got word that Loeffler and Warnock will go to a runoff election that is going to be held in January. None of them were able to come up with the 50% vote that they needed, so that will go to a runoff election. In Maine, a state that was predicted to be a tight battle, Republican Susan Collins has a big lead over challenger Susan Gideon, with only 26% of the vote reported. This is one race that we will have to keep an eye on. With half the vote counted in Iowa, Democratic nominee Teresa Greenfield has jumped out to an 11-point lead over Republican nominee Joni Ernst, another race that we will be keeping an eye on. And in Arizona, we have 75% of the vote in, and Mark Kelly has a 10-point lead over Martha McSally, so that is one seat that the Democrats could steal back tonight. Let's send it back over to Jacob and Adam at the desk.
So that is one seat, thank you, Brady, that Democrats might be able to flip. But looking at North Carolina right now, Thom Tillis is up by a little more than a point and a half. The Georgia special election, not able to call because nobody's even close to 50%. In the other seat in Georgia right now, David Perdue is still up a lot. Doesn't look like they're going to be able to flip that. Mississippi, I would expect to get called soon. Cindy Hyde-Smith, the incumbent, she's up by 15 points. Iowa, maybe. That's now 54% reported. Greenfield up by 3 over the incumbent Joni Ernst. Minnesota looks pretty safe for now. Michigan, 43% of the votes are in. John James, the Republican challenger, is up big by 13 points over the incumbent Gary Peters right now. And Maine, there's still a lot that we're waiting on to get reported up there. Susan Collins is up. Montana right now, a quarter of the precincts are in. Steve Bullock, the Democratic challenger, he's up by 10 right now. So it's possible that we could see, the way things look right now, Iowa, Montana, and Arizona could flip, but you've got people in Michigan that are in danger right now of losing a seat and possibly setting them back. Plus, it looks more and more likely that they're going to need that 4th seat because the likelihood of Joe Biden winning the election right now is going down and down and down.
Absolutely. I know the Democrats definitely started off the night with very high hopes, and while the presidency is looking less and less likely for Joe Biden, still too early to call, the House and the Senate, those projections are still looking better for the Democrats than the presidency. But again, we still have yet to see a lot of results coming out of Florida. We actually did call Florida for President Trump. Yep. But Georgia and North Carolina, those two are still up in the air. We still have not heard any results from them. However, currently as it stands, Donald Trump is still ahead in these 2 states. Texas, also Donald Trump with a lead. However, and then Arizona, Biden is still leading. So if Biden wins Arizona, and as Michigan and Wisconsin are looking right now, while Trump is ahead, it still could turn around as Wisconsin is only at 50%, as Michigan is only at 43%. Still, Biden, both candidates still have very strong chances. However, it is now starting to look more and more like Trump is starting to have a lot more open opportunities, especially with Nevada. If he gets Nevada from 2016, which was won by Hillary Clinton, as you informed me, we could be seeing an even greater margin of victory for President Trump if he wins the same states he won in 2016 and he now picks up Nevada as well.
Well, and it's certainly going to be something to keep our eyes on, but at this point in the night, Trump is on the offensive, which is exactly where he was on this night 4 years ago. Coming into the night, it looked like Hillary Clinton was going to blow him out of the water. We were going to have the glass ceiling break. She was going to be the first woman president. And then by 10 o'clock, everybody looked at each other and said, okay, Donald Trump's going to be president now. And eventually that got confirmed. And right now, it's not looking great for the person known as Joe Biden right now to try and get into the White House. It sounds like he just may be a tourist to the White House for the next 4 years. But there's still a long way to go. You know, there's still a lot to count in Georgia, and I know that there is a county that is stopping counting until tomorrow because of some postal service issues with mail-in ballots that they're trying to iron out right now. Just a couple of Senate things that Brady did not talk about, and one that just broke a few moments ago. Bill Cassidy, the Republican in Louisiana, he will win re-election. In that election, you have to hit 50%, otherwise it would hit a runoff. Taking a look here at the numbers that we have, he had 63% of the vote, so it was pretty safe to say that he was going to win that seat, so that seat will remain red. Also looking at Oregon, Jeff Merkley, the Democrat, he will win re-election in Oregon. That seat he wins pretty handily over Joe Ray Perkins, 71% to 25%. Still waiting on a lot of others at this point in time, but again, we've only seen 2 seats flip in total, one for the Democrats, one for the Republicans. At this point in time, it's getting more and more difficult, not only for Biden to win the White House, but it's getting more and more difficult for the Democrats to take back the Senate.
I think definitely, and if you really look at it, I think the biggest issue the Democrats had going in is the same mistake that they made back in 2016, overconfidence. I think they went in with a lot higher expectations, even though 2016 they made the same mistake. Democrats went in, they had assumed Hillary Clinton had this presidency in the bag, and while Democrats were a lot more cautious in this year when it came to Joe Biden, still, I believe the problem is parties were relying too much on early polls and early voting. And once again, I do believe that the Democrats are underestimating the amount of support President Trump has in a lot of these crucial states and just how many of them would turn out for in-person voting rather than mail-in.
Right now, we're still waiting on a lot of states. There are some states that I think are close at this point in being called. Texas, I think the lead might be too big for Biden to overcome. Same in North Carolina, same in Ohio. Although the gap in North Carolina has closed down a bit, it's still about 1.5 points, 95% of precincts reporting. It doesn't look great right now for Donald Trump. And we have a call, breaking news. Fox calls Arizona for former Vice President Joe Biden. So, a flip for the Democrats. Finally, they're jumping up and down for joy. They have a flip.
This is something the Democrats have been waiting for all night. This is what they need. This is essentially their Hail Mary. This is their chance. Their opportunities just opened up. Arizona is a game changer here in this election. Just when we were saying it was starting to look grim, Arizona now puts a wrench in that, and now, once again, it is anybody's game here, because as long as Wisconsin and Michigan and North Carolina are open, while the margins are high for Donald Trump in Wisconsin and Michigan, it is still too early, and those results will probably not be coming in until much later, which means that Joe Biden still can turn Wisconsin and Michigan around. And then with those three, with Arizona, with Minnesota, with Michigan and with Wisconsin, all Joe Biden would have to do then is he needs to win North Carolina at least.
Getting told in my ear, Joe Biden has come out and said he knows he's not going to hit 270 votes tonight. He thinks it's going to come down to Pennsylvania. He doesn't think that anybody's going to win this election tonight. He thinks that your nightmare scenario is going to come true. It's going to come down to Pennsylvania. That's what he's thinking.
So,
I'm trying to do the math here right
on the
now.
card, but the PA nightmare scenario, I went in expecting it was like I had like a 0.5% chance of this outcome becoming a reality.
All right.
But now you have a presidential candidate literally explaining that.
I've got the math. So, and this is not for your fantasy over there. Okay.
My nightmare.
So,
my nightmare.
right now, Arizona is blue. We've established that. If Joe Biden can win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, that puts him at 266. It's close. We already talked about Nevada and how the Latino vote or the Hispanic vote appears to be strong in Nevada, and they're comparing that to Florida. If Donald Trump comes out on top of Nevada, that might just be the election. If Joe Biden can pull out Nevada like Hillary Clinton did 4 years ago, Joe Biden will hit 272 and could be the next president of the United States, but he has to have a clean sweep. He doesn't have to worry about Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio, or Iowa anymore. He has to worry about Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. We still haven't called Maine. There's not a lot of vote coming in from Maine, so we're still waiting on that, and we're still waiting on Nevada. Never in a million years did I think a presidential election could come down to Nevada, but right now that's the way it's looking.
I told you from the beginning, I said it from the beginning, anything can happen. And sure enough, in the unlikeliness that a state that not many people will give another thought to in terms of an election, when it comes down to a state like Nevada, it really just shows just how much of a free-for-all 2020 has been.
Another projection, this one in the Senate. We have a flip. Mark Kelly will beat Martha McSally in the seat in Arizona. Mark Kelly will flip a seat for the Democrats. So the Democrats are now up by one, which it's now a two-person gap in the Senate in control. So 52 Republicans, 48 Democrats. That's if nothing else flips for now. Things are starting to come together for Democrats, but they've been counting on Arizona since about July at this point. Arizona's been in their hand to begin with. Some other states, though, that were also in the hand, like Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, and that's out the window.
Yes. I definitely think we might have possibly jinxed it for Republicans, because literally about 10 minutes ago we were saying that the chances for Democrats winning a lot of these races was starting to look slimmer and slimmer. But now with Arizona and now with that Senate seat turn, now once again it is back to being anybody's game here. There are still very different possible outcomes for both candidates as well as for both parties in general. So again, the night is still young, even though we are almost at midnight here, and we still have two states that have not closed yet. It is still anybody's game. The map is, while it is looking more and more filled, there is still a long way to go from there.
A report from CBS News in Michigan from the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State in Michigan now predicts all of the state's votes will be counted within the next 24 hours. So hypothetically speaking, we should have a winner in Michigan by this time tomorrow instead of the November 6th prediction that they've had, that they think they might get everything done by November 6th. They're now saying they'll have it by tomorrow. But we still don't have a winner. At this point, it's going to come down to Pennsylvania.
That's not what you want to hear when you're a resident of Pennsylvania. Nobody wants to live in the state that decides an election.
Nope.
I mean, well, I keep talking about it, but that's because it was such an insane election, and it could be very similar to this year's election, the election of 2000. George W. Bush, Al Gore. This election here came down to one state, and a lot of people have not looked fondly on that state since then. But again,
I tell you what, the people in Florida are screaming up to the heavens and saying, thank you. They're not involved in a political mess. It's somebody else's fault this time. So we're going to take a breather here, re-rack. We'll be back in a moment, and we'll see what else happens here on SUTV News. Our live election coverage continues in a moment. Stay with us. We're back here at 11:35 here on the East Coast. In 25 minutes, we'll be able to project the state of Hawaii, presumably. We have another feel-good moment with Bailey Casada. Let's go back over to her now and take a break from the political chaos. Bailey.
Thanks for sticking with us throughout the night. For this feel-good segment for the hour, people around the U.S. have been sending tens of thousands of baseball cards to a 9-year-old girl. It comes after she lost her home and her card collection in California's Creek Fire in September. The young Giants fan has been collecting baseball cards for years, laying them out as she watched her team, as well as her favorite player, Buster Posey. When the Creek Fire sparked, it took her family's home and her beloved cards with it. Action News spoke with Reese as CAL FIRE and other first responders were stepping up to the plate to help collect baseball cards to donate to Reese and her friends. And the donations came pouring in. But an even bigger surprise came on Friday. She and her family arrived to the CAL FIRE station near Prather for what she thought would be an interview. However, during the Zoom call, someone unexpected dropped in. That's right, her favorite player, Buster Posey, joined the call. Along with some one-on-one time with Posey, the San Francisco Giants sent her a signed baseball and new gear from her favorite team. Reese now hopes to pay it forward and donate many of the new cards to others who love the sport. But she plans to find the Buster Posey cards first. Thanks for joining me. Now back to Adam and Jacob at the desk.
Thank you, Bailey. And tell you what, looking here at the numbers in Ohio, 88% of the precincts now reporting, 53% for Trump, 45% for Biden. We're getting to another scenario here where we're running out of land for Biden support. When are we going to call this thing?
That's the interesting thing. Like, chances are, even if Biden is able to turn around some of this land, will it be enough to turn some of these? Will it be enough to turn the state, and will it be a win for him or for Trump? It all just depends. It all depends here. And I think it's really kind of interesting to look at Ohio right now, because Trump currently is outperforming himself in 2016 in the state of Ohio in those suburban areas. Like we said, blue-collar votes here are what Trump thrives on.
I tell you what, I hope we're not pulling a 2000 here. We've got 64% of the vote in Virginia. Donald Trump is still leading in Virginia. He's leading by 2 points now. It was a lot bigger earlier. We've projected Biden to win this state since, I don't know, 8 o'clock tonight.
I believe when Virginia's poll closed, I believe that's when we sort of had an idea.
It's possible, but I'm wondering if we're going to have to eat some crow here tonight with that state. We'll just have to we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, it's a waiting game. We still have yet to hear any numbers from Nevada, which closed at 10. The polls in Clark County were extended to 11 o'clock. It's now past, it's almost 11:40 now here on the East Coast, and we still have a goose egg in the column for Nevada.
Yeah, I mean, Nevada really is, like you said, now that all eyes are on Nevada, it's almost kind of, it's very nerve-wracking to think now that we still have heard nothing out of Nevada, not even a percentage. Even the states that we aren't most likely going to call until probably the end of the week, we have heard more results coming out of Pennsylvania than we have Nevada, which is a state that, like Jacob said, closed an hour ago, and just about an hour ago now, and we still have heard nothing.
Yep. Just again, we're going to talk about the House here, and we really haven't seen much of anything too dramatic. We have seen a couple of seats in Florida, though, flip from Democrat control to Republican control, including one in Miami-Dade County where Biden fell behind, and really it looks like that's going to be the reason that he doesn't win in Florida. Plus we have a projection now, Elise Stefanik from the 21st District in New York. She won in 2018, part of that wave of women. She's a Republican. She will win re-election in the state of New York. For some more on the House side of things, we'll go over to Nolan Hoffman, who's got more up at the big board. What you got, Nolan?
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. As results for important and close House races continue to pour in throughout the night, certain races are getting interesting. At the moment, Democrats have won 97 House seats, while Republicans have won 129, with 209 seats still up for grabs. With the Arizona 6th district race between Democrat Harold Tamburrini and Republican David Schwenker, the projected numbers at the moment, according to the New York Times, indicate Tamburrini with a 5-point lead with 73% of the votes are now reported. Still a really tight race as the votes continue to come in. We will continue to keep you updated. Another close House race I have been keeping an eye on throughout the night is the New Jersey 2nd District, with Jeff Van Drew still leading Amy Kennedy by about 4 points, with about 74% of the votes reported. So still some votes to come in with that race, and like I said, throughout the night we continue to update that. That race will still be in our hands. We will update you with that. I was continuing to keep up with the Texas 24th District race, where it's been a really close race between candidate Valenzuela, Beth Van Dooney, and it's coming down to the wire. Dooney still leads Valenzuela by about 1%, with 87% of the votes still to come in. So still votes to come in for this race, and we don't have a projected winner just yet. It's worth to say that the Democrats are still favored to keep control of the House. And back to Jacob and Adam at the desk.
Thank you, Nolan. While you were running through the House races, I saw something interesting that Ohio, Donald Trump won the state of Ohio by 8 points in 2016. He is now up, he's been up by 8 points in Ohio at this point. So it looks like an almost exact repeat in the state of Ohio. He's been outperforming some numbers in some states across the country. Right now in Ohio, though, it looks like he is doing just about as well as he did 4 years ago compared to his matchup against Hillary Clinton.
Once again, I really think the Democrats very much underestimated the support that Donald Trump received, the same kind of support that he received back in 2016. And Donald Trump knows what states he needs. He knows where the core supporters and where the big turnouts for him lie. And Ohio, he won by 8 points back in 2016, and now coming to present day, Ohio still is looking good for Trump with the 8 points. So again, we could be seeing a lot of repeats from 2016, and Ohio definitely looks to be a state that could be almost an exact replica of Trump's win in 2016.
I would like something repeated that I just heard in my ear. Was that Philadelphia is restarting the counting of mail-in ballots? Okay, Philadelphia County is restarting their counting of mail-in ballots due to mistakes. Welcome to the world of mail-in ballots. And these things happen. Humans are running these things. It's not machines. And mistakes are made and should be expected.
Oh, absolutely. No matter what state it is, if mail-in ballots are a crucial part of the states and their votes, then you can be almost sure that no matter what state it is, you are going to hear something like that. You're going to hear errors, you're going to hear recounts. It's mainly going to be the topic of this week and possibly next week. Like we said, right now, a lot of these states are pretty secure with their votes. However, with some of these other battleground states, everyone's eyes are on these mail-in ballots, and these mail-in ballots have been up for have been in question for quite some time now, especially by the Trump administration. So recounts are very likely in a lot of these crucial states, and Pennsylvania now looks to be the first real victim of the recount virus going on here right now.
As of now, Pennsylvania is 50% of precincts reporting. Just looking here, I'm curious to see how much has come from Philadelphia County. Philadelphia County, 40% of voting has come in, 75% for Joe Biden, 23% for Donald Trump. Statewide, Trump leads by 12 points, 56 to 42%, roughly 500,000 votes at this point in time. Looking at some of the local counties, the only county near our neck of the woods that is not red is Dauphin County. Right now, 78% of the precincts reporting there. That's where Harrisburg is. Biden leads by about 14 points, 56 to 42%. Here in Cumberland County, Donald Trump leads by a lot, make it 70% to 28% over Joe Biden. 63% of precincts reporting. One note from the New York Times. This was reported about a week ago now. It showed a map of donations made to political candidates by zip code. Just looking at the Shippensburg zip code in particular, Donald Trump raised $27,673 from 210 donations. Biden raised $19,836 from 188 donations. So pretty even, all things considered, across the board, especially compared to the way polls look right now. Trump is way far out ahead compared to how much he's raised from this area.
Well, I think the thing is there, like you said, while Biden had less amount of money, more supporters were donating more.
Projection. Fox News projects Ohio goes to President Donald Trump.
All right.
So there we go. That's another one.
All right.
Fox News projects Ohio for President Trump. He will pick up there lots of votes. Of course, I don't have the number in front of me right now. Let's try 18. 18 electoral votes for President Trump in his quest for re-election. Another shoe drops. That gets him so much closer.
I think at this point, every time we call, just when we start saying one party's chances are looking better, immediately a state is called that completely throws that out of the way and then gives it back to the party that we were just saying is now more even. And now, as you can see, Ohio has gone to Donald Trump once again, like in 2016. And as we have mentioned multiple times here, Ohio is a state that has voted with the winner in just about every election. And Ohio is an incredibly crucial state here. And now that Trump has secured Ohio, this is making his run for re-election looking more and more likely, especially with Florida and now with Georgia and North Carolina leading a lot closer for Trump. It is looking a lot more likely for Trump. And even though former Vice President Joe Biden did say that it could come down to Pennsylvania, if he wins Nevada and he wins back and he gets Texas and he wins back a lot of the states that he won in 2016, then we still might be able to call re-election for President Trump at some point in the night, but very later on. Still, it is up in the air with the states that have not been called yet.
So right now, it looks like President Trump is at 165 electoral votes. That's with Florida. That's with Ohio right now. And I believe Biden is at 220 with Arizona added in. So we're still waiting on Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Maine, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Texas, Nevada, Montana. Those are the states that we're still waiting on right now. There's still a pretty long way to go. For those of you just tuning in, go look back at 2016. That's pretty much where we're at right now. Joe Biden came in as the favorite. He is no longer the favorite. Joe Biden, Florida is just gone. Florida has voted for Donald Trump. There is no doubt about that at this point. There is a big lack of support for Joe Biden at this point
in the state of Florida, similar to what we saw 4 years ago, if not worse to what we saw 4 years ago with Hillary Clinton. And there's still a lot to be counted. It looks like it's going to come down to Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Nevada if we can ever get some numbers in.
Absolutely. It is still shocking. We are almost at midnight here. We are less than 15 minutes away from midnight. It is going to be Wednesday, November 4th, and we still have heard nothing out of Nevada. And Nevada is looking more and more like it is going to be a crucial state. And that was a state that nobody was even considering being as crucial as it is. But as it is looking now with Ohio won by President Trump and Florida with President Trump, but with Biden having Arizona, Nevada is looking more and more valuable to each party. And it'll be very interesting to see once we start getting numbers out of there. And it almost makes me wonder if they're counting right now and it has just not been updated, and possibly it's going to go to an immediate color as soon as everything is in. But
I talked about how close this is to 2016. It doesn't get any more 2016 than this. Joe Biden's leading in the popular vote right now over Donald Trump. It's 56 million or so to about 54 million and a half that Donald Trump has. Joe Biden's closer to 270 right now. Joe Biden has 220. Donald Trump has 165. There's still a long way to go. We're going to take a break, take a little bit of a breather. We'll be back in just a few moments. Stay with us.
Looking for a way to be informed and get involved? Join Student Media on Campus. Whether it's SHIP's Emmy-winning TV station, SUTV, award-winning newspaper, The Slate, university radio station, WSYC 88.7, or nationally recognized Public Relations Society, PRSSA, there's an organization for you. Make the most of your college experience. Visit the 3rd floor of the Cub or Roland Hall for more information. This has been a public service announcement from SUTV.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Are you having a hard time focusing on your work? Why not check out the Ezra Lehman Memorial Library? The library has many resources like the IT desk on the main floor. For computer assistance, see the experts. Need to print in black and white or color? Don't worry, the library offers both options on different floors. You can use the bottom floor for group work and the top floor for when you need silence. Don't forget to stop by Starbucks. Check out library.ship.edu for more information. This is a public service announcement from...
So we've got some breaking news coming in right now, and it involves Pennsylvania, of course. A Pennsylvania court has agreed to hold a hearing tomorrow. Now at this point, it's almost today. We've got 10 minutes till midnight, but tomorrow on Wednesday, on a GOP effort to invalidate mail ballots that initially contained errors but were later fixed. So, I mean, that's going to throw a wrinkle in things, and it could take even longer for us to figure out who wins this state.
again, this is not the year you want to live in Pennsylvania. All eyes are going to be on Pennsylvania, especially if it all comes down to Pennsylvania, which is what former Vice President Joe Biden is projecting. He is projecting that there is not going to be a winner tonight. Neither candidate is going to get to 270, and it will be decided by Pennsylvania, which, if you've been paying attention, is not the outcome that I, at least, do not want to hear.
We're getting a report right now from Jonathan Swan at Axios that the White House and the Trump campaign is furious at Fox News right now for the Arizona call that put Arizona in the Biden column. So clearly they think they've got a better chance in Arizona than everybody else thinks right now. 76% of the vote is in right now. Biden leads 53-45, so it's about an 8-point gap in the state. There's still a decent bit that's still uncounted. I don't know if Trump is going to be able to make all of that up. Just an update with Iowa. Iowa's jumped up a bit since we went to break. It's now at 78% reported. Donald Trump 51.5%. Joe Biden 46.6%. So about a 5-point gap there for Biden. So he still closed in the gap in Iowa compared to 4 years ago when Trump won it by 9 points and swung Iowa in the Republicans' direction by 16 points. And I mean, it's close. One thing about Georgia here, because Georgia, early on we thought it was going to go to Biden. Then as the night went on, it looked like there's no way Biden's going to have a chance. However, as time has gone on now, it was projected, I think, at an 84% chance that Donald Trump was going to win the state of Georgia. That meter has ticked back towards the center a little bit. It's now up at 75%. 75% chance that Donald Trump wins Georgia, which is less than what it was earlier. It's still a solid chance for Trump, but that means that things are tightening in a little bit, and Georgia's not out of reach yet.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Georgia is, as a lot of the projections have looked, if Trump wins Florida, Georgia or North Carolina are the two states that Biden would want to win in order to stop re-election for President Trump. And now with Georgia going back on its higher projections for President Trump, we could possibly see a giant turnaround. It would have to be a pretty sizable turnaround for Joe Biden here in Georgia. Currently, as it stands, Trump still has a very healthy lead over Biden, but with the percentage of likelihood going down for Trump, that could possibly mean that we are going to start seeing some turnaround for Biden. But again, it is unclear. Georgia is one of those states where it is completely up in the air. And the more news that we hear coming out of these states like Georgia, like Pennsylvania, the less likely we know who the candidate is. Like, the least we know about who could possibly win it. But I also found it interesting here that the Trump administration is focusing now on Arizona, which a lot of projections, including Fox News, were looking at Biden picking up Arizona. And I completely understand why the Trump administration is mad and why they want to keep their eyes on Arizona.
Another call, Texas. Donald Trump wins the state of Texas. The second biggest electoral prize in the union, the state of Texas, and it's 38 electoral votes, I believe it is. Donald Trump wins the state of Texas. So add that to the list. That's a big one that has been taken off the board. 38 electoral votes in the state of Texas. Joe Biden wins there.
You mean Donald Trump?
Yes, I'm sorry, not Joe Biden. Donald Trump wins Texas. President Trump has won Texas. Just to make clear, Donald Trump wins Texas. Red. All right. I was thinking of Joe Biden, though, because I had done the math while you were talking about if Joe Biden loses Pennsylvania but wins Wisconsin and Michigan, and he's able to pull out Georgia, that puts him at 262. You add Nevada, 268. He's one away.
It is interesting.
One away from a tie.
It is interesting to bring up Nevada because we are finally starting to see numbers coming out. It is less than 1%, but we are still starting to see stuff coming out of
405 votes, and 374 of them are for Donald Trump right now.
Yeah.
So I don't expect it to stay that lopsided, but we're finally seeing results in Nevada after almost 2 hours.
I was going to say
closing.
they're about an hour behind the originally scheduled time that they said, which was an hour behind the original scheduled time. So now we're seeing results out of Nevada, even though it is less than 1%. It is going to be interesting to see how quickly we hear results coming out of Nevada. And again, depending on how Nevada turns, it could really, really decide who has the better chance here at the White House tonight.
The last time I can remember Nevada having an impact on an election would have been the West Wing at the end of the show. That's about as much as I got for Nevada right now. Speaking of West Wing, talk about celebrities. Celebrities have had a big impact in this election. In fact, the West Wing had a reunion that we talked about on SUTV Entertainment. When We All Vote, they did a stage production of one of their older episodes, and it was interesting. It was on HBO Max. I did see it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And their goal was to help bring out the vote.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, politicians have always relied on celebrities to help get. Mainly, I believe the celebrities are targeted at those younger voters, like those early voters. And while you can definitely see that Democrats normally get the larger celebrity turnout, that still does not. I have noticed this year especially that more celebrities have been going towards Donald Trump this year especially. A lot of rappers have been going towards Donald Trump, and I think that's really interesting just to sort of see how celebrities have turned towards Donald Trump when normally they are normally more supportive of the Democratic Party.
SUTV's entertainment director Brady Fisher. He's got more on the political endorsements from celebrities to political candidates. Brady.
Election day is finally here, and celebrities are tossing their support on both sides of the aisle in hopes that their voices can tip the election scale. Last night, at a rally in Grand Rapids, Michigan, President Donald Trump brought rapper Lil Pump out on the stage. Lil Pump thanked President Trump for bringing the troops home, while also threatening to leave the United States if Joe Biden won the election. On the other side of the race, Democratic nominee Joe Biden brought singer Lady Gaga out on the stage at his rally last night in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In Gaga's speech, she said, quote, "Vote like your life depends on it, or vote like your children's lives depend on it, because they do," end quote. After her speech, Gaga took to the piano and performed a rendition of her hit song Shallow from the movie A Star is Born. These two aren't the only ones to make presidential endorsements recently. Jack Nicklaus, former pro golfer, and Brett Favre, Hall of Fame quarterback, both posted to social media to endorse President Trump for re-election. Favre said in his post, quote, "In this election, we have freedom of choice, which we should all respect. For me and these principles, my vote is for Donald Trump," end quote. Famous rapper Lil Wayne also met with President Trump recently, praising his platinum plan for African Americans. After their meeting, Wayne posted a photo with President Trump on his social media accounts. Longtime rock and roll musician Bruce Springsteen lended his voice to a campaign ad for Democratic nominee Biden. In the campaign video, Springsteen says that Biden will, quote, "give working people the shot they deserve," end quote. Both candidates have secured high-profile endorsements for this election. Now both President Trump and Democratic nominee Biden have to wait and see if these endorsements will pay off. For SUTV News, I'm Brady Fisher.
Thank you, Brady, for that. We're going to take a little bit of a break now, and we're going to send it over to an interview that Patrick Ramsdale got the chance to do. We got to sit down with VP of Student Affairs with the Student Government Association, Riley Brown. Here's that.
Hi, I'm Patrick Ramsdale, and I'm joined here by SGA Vice President of Student Groups, Riley Brown. Riley, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Patrick. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So my first question here is, as part of SGA, you know how difficult it is running for office, regardless of the scale. So what was it like for you running for a position at SGA, and what was the most challenging part of that?
Yeah, it was definitely a great experience. Really, the best part about running for any elected office is the ability to meet new people, the ability to connect, the ability to understand the people you are serving. And as much as politicians today get a negative view at some points, their job is to be there for their constituents. And I think that was one of the most gratifying experiences. You know, I heard stories, so many stories while I was campaigning across this campus. Stories, you know, of triumphs and passion and excitement, but also stories of struggle and the need for us to do better in certain areas. So I was really able to see a wide range of stories and connect with people on a really amazing level. And I think that was the big takeaway for me.
Awesome. And as you know, voting is a very important part. It's a kind of civic duty as Americans, especially for young adults like ourselves. So why is it so important for everyone to get out and vote?
Yeah, it's really, as you said, it's a civic duty. You know, we have people who fight every day to protect this country and protect the values that we all cherish. And so us voting is a way to give back, is a way to say, yes, we appreciate the service and the commitment to our country. But it's also a chance for us to voice our opinions, our passions, the things that we believe. And I think it's important for Americans who are often passionate about certain issues to make sure that their voice is heard. Because at the end of the day, you know, we can complain, we can be disgruntled, we can challenge ideas, but nothing's going to get done unless we go out and vote and make our voices heard.
And continuing on voting, Ship Votes on Campus has done an excellent job in promoting voting to students as well as getting them to register and even offering rides to the polls. Can you just speak about the importance of Ship Votes on campus?
Yeah, first off, I think Ship Votes has done a phenomenal job on campus this semester. And talking to some of my colleagues at other institutions, some of my friends at other institutions, large and small, I think what we have done here at Shippensburg University is amazing. Encouraging students to vote, educating them on, the issues and who's running. Those important aspects, I think are absolutely phenomenal. So I do give my hat off to Ship Votes because they have done an amazing job. And I think it just really underscores the value of voting, the importance of voting. I really think their messaging has done great things for our campus this semester.
And speaking on kind of how voting and this election will affect colleges and even students as a whole, why do you think, how important is this election for college students and for universities as a whole?
Yeah, I think this is one of the most important elections that those of us will see in our lifetime. I think there are two very different avenues of approach in this election, two very different viewpoints, more different than we've ever seen. And so you have to ask yourself right now, for 5, 10, 15, 20, 40 years down the road, where would you like to see this country? And like I said, there are two very different avenues to doing that. So I think it's important for people as students at this university to really think about what kind of life they want and the leaders that they want to help elect to shape this country for that life that they want. Again, two different schools of thought, two different ways of doing it. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what do I want my country to look like?
You spoke on how there's kind of the two different avenues for the two different candidates running, but we've never seen a third party candidate win the White House. Do you think that's a possibility that we would see at some point in our lifetime?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that if we continue on the divided road that we are on, if we continue this very vicious political, personal, angry atmosphere in politics, I really do believe that within our lifetime, I'm not sure it's going to be very soon, but I think if we continue down this road, I do think that there's the possibility for a third-party candidate to win the White House. We saw it with Ross Perot back in the 90s. He became a staple, right, for what it was to be a third-party candidate. And so he kind of propelled the third-party idea to the next level. While I do think it is going to take a long time, it is possible if we continue down this very divided political path. I am hopeful that we will not go down this very divided path for, generations, but I do think it is possible if we continue down this road, yes.
Riley, I'd like to thank you for joining us on SCTV News. Is there any final thoughts that you have?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank SUTV for your hard work in the media on campus. As we know, in every election, the media plays a critical role. And so honest media is super, super important, and we should give credit to those as well, covering this very busy election cycle, to say the least.
All right, well, that was Riley Brown, SGA Vice President of Student Groups. So now we're going to send it back to Jacob and Adam for your live election coverage.
Thank you, Patrick. Just a couple of things here. So we are past 12 o'clock on the East Coast. We can project, no surprise, Hawaii goes to Joe Biden, and it's 4 electoral votes. That puts Biden at 224. Donald Trump right now is at 100, and I never did the math, so I'm not sure. Actually, I think he's close to 200. I think he's at 203 right now. And somebody can fact check me and yell at me if I'm wrong. But right now, I just got word that the United States Postal Service has lost 300,000 ballots. I don't know where, I don't know how, but apparently the United States Postal Service has lost 300,000 ballots throughout this election. Just some news out of Atlanta. Atlanta will not finish its count tonight. Election workers in Fulton County, mostly Pittsburgh. Mostly Pittsburgh is where those ballots have been lost. Election workers in Fulton County in Georgia who were counting absentee ballots have gone home for the night. They had a water line break, which delayed the court. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but right now we're still grinding away, waiting for
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, waiting for a couple of states to get called here. The AABC has now called Ohio for Donald Trump. It was Fox that called Ohio and Fox that called Texas that we reported in the last half hour. Right now in the Senate in North Carolina, very close, greater than 95% of the polls are reporting, and Tom Tillis is up by about 2 points right now, so it's pretty close there. And there's still a long way to go and a short time to get there.
Oh, absolutely. Now that 300,000 ballots, 300,000 mail-in ballots, we are not even halfway through election night, and already PA is definitely going to be the biggest question mark here in this election. And I'm starting to agree with former Vice President Joe Biden. Pennsylvania might be the deciding factor here in the election. As much going into this election night coverage, as much as I did not want to say that Pennsylvania could be the deciding factor, right now, Pennsylvania with 300,000 ballots missing, and now Philadelphia having to recount their ballots, really just goes to show that Pennsylvania is going to be under a microscope in the next couple of days, seeing how it most likely is now going to be the state that will decide who the next president of the United States is.
It certainly got that chance to be the deciding factor here, and there are still many other states that have to go many other different directions, both for Biden and for Trump, in order for it to come down to Pennsylvania. But it's looking more and more likely at this point that Pennsylvania could be the ultimate decider, and if for some reason we tie, it would be the House that is the ultimate decider, not Pennsylvania, which really at this point would put Georgia, big out of Georgia. I talked about the meter that was moving Trump towards the center. It's now pushed all the way across. The New York Times is now projecting that there is a 62% chance that Joe Biden wins the state of Georgia. Georgia was pushing for Biden early on, presumably the mail-in ballots. Then as the night went on, a huge shift to the right, and Donald Trump seemed to have it under lock and key. Now it seems like it's a ball game in Georgia again, which takes the pressure off of Pennsylvania in a sense, because Joe Biden does not necessarily need, he does not need the state of
Pennsylvania.
Sorry, I'm blanking. He doesn't need Pennsylvania because if he wins Georgia, that's 16 electoral votes, and then he wins Wisconsin and Michigan, that's 26 more electoral votes. That puts him at 262. We add Hawaii in there, which we added just a little bit ago. That puts him at 266, which is where he was with Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. You add Nevada, he's at 272, he's won. So, it's possible that Georgia could go for Joe Biden, Pennsylvania could go for Donald Trump, and Joe Biden could still win the presidency.
However, it is interesting to think now that Georgia could play a crucial part here, especially with the news that Atlanta won't finish counting its votes tonight, which now could possibly throw a wrench into possibly calling Georgia at the end of the night. Now Georgia could possibly be completely up in the air, even though it is starting to turn around for Joe Biden. We possibly now will not be able to know who won the state of Georgia until early into the morning, or whenever those who count the ballots return and finish counting Atlanta. But yes, again, it is interesting that even that PA, it really is a 50-50 shot here in terms of Pennsylvania. There's a very good chance that Pennsylvania could decide the election, but if Georgia somehow is called by the end of the night and Biden does win, or one of them wins, then there still is a chance that we could call the president by the end of the night without Pennsylvania's help. But it is still a 50-50 shot here because it is anybody's game, especially now with PA and Georgia out of the race.
Associated Press and New York Times have now confirmed Ohio President Trump.
Yes, it has just gone bad.
We've got the seal of approval on that. There's no doubt now.
Yes.
This is it. We got it. And of course, Hawaii for Biden as well. We're still waiting on vote totals to come in. I still can't, well, I guess we did call Florida. Fox News did call Florida for President Trump. It has not been called yet by the New York Times. It's still got a more than 95% chance that he wins. There's 96% of the vote in Florida, but there's still no count. Nobody's called North Carolina, and this race is tightened a bit. 95% of the vote in. Joe Biden is down by only 1.5 points.
Yeah, it is really interesting here. North Carolina and Florida. Florida, we have started to see a little bit of news coming out of, but again, it is looking likely that Trump, even though we cannot actually call an exact winner, Donald Trump's odds in Florida are still looking pretty solid. However, North Carolina does possibly pose a threat to Donald Trump if the odds are starting to turn towards Joe Biden, and those odds are very slim in North Carolina. Because if North Carolina is like Georgia, and it is a state that Joe Biden suddenly can turn around, if he's able to turn around North Carolina, and in some miracle we are able to actually call Georgia for one of them, if Biden is the candidate that we call for Georgia, and he has already won North Carolina, then Biden is almost guaranteed the presidency. But again, Georgia now looks very unlikely that we are actually going to get an official call.
We have another call. This one from the Associated Press. This one, Minnesota. We can now project Minnesota goes to Joe Biden. No real surprise here. It's a state that the Democrats won in 2016. They were expected to win this one again. And now, in the wee small hours of the morning, Minnesota, we can confirm, goes to Joe Biden. Now, hold on, one more, looks like. Fox News projecting President Trump wins Iowa, 2 back-to-back. So, 2 calls from the Midwest, one in Minnesota, one in Iowa. Minnesota goes blue, Iowa goes red.
Now, well, these were 2 states where, while they are important in the grand scheme of things, they were very obvious wins for both candidates.
Yeah.
I think Iowa was a very safe place for Trump. Even though it was one of those toss-up battleground states, it still was a pretty safe call for President Trump, as well as Minnesota being a pretty safe call for former Vice President Joe Biden. Minnesota has definitely been a very safe space for Democrats, even if it has taken some time to get any news out of.
Yeah, and we are now getting to the point where we're seeing some states, get called, like Iowa. That only got called at 10 o'clock, and now here we are 2 hours later, and we have a winner. Minnesota, that got called at 9 o'clock. Now we have a winner there. But we're still waiting on states like North Carolina, which closed at 7:30. Maine closed at 8 o'clock, and we've heard nothing from them. We still haven't had 50% of the vote in. However, Joe Biden was down way early in the night. He's now up by 5 points, almost 6. So
another state that we haven't actually really touched on all that much, while it does seem like a safe call for President Trump, and a lot of these percentages are most likely early voting, which usually will lean towards the Democrat in this election, Montana. Yep. Montana is a state that we haven't really touched on. Only 3 electoral votes. It was a pretty safe win for Trump back in 2016, and a lot of early polls have been pointing to Trump being the winner. As of right now, Montana sits at 50% of the votes have been totaled in Montana. And Donald Trump does not have a solid lead as many would expect. He currently sits at 49.3%, while Joe Biden sits at 47.8%. So that is less than 2%. Like that is less than 2%, and while, like we said, this is early voting, this is most likely a lot of mail-in ballots, so we could see a very big spike for Donald Trump coming from Montana, since it has been such a reliable Republican state.
We're now going to take a look at some of the campus response, since there have been parties going on campus, socially distant and everything, over in the Cub relating to the election. Our own Bailey Casada got the chance to go over there and make a package out of it, and here's what she got.
Shippensburg University students made sure that they voted in today's election. Whether that would be traveling to their hometowns or locally, it's clear that SHIP students want their voices to be heard. Many have been active on social media, vocalizing their political views, reminding friends and family to vote, and showing off the I voted stickers. I'm here in the red zone here in the Cub at Shippensburg University, and students have the opportunity to watch live election coverage. I got the chance to talk to some students about voting.
It's a chance to have your voice heard, and as our generation is part of the largest group of voters, we have a chance to make a real impact in the country.
Voting is important to me because I believe we all have a voice, and it's important that we decide our own futures.
And we'll be continuing to bring you election coverage throughout the night. I'm Bailey Casada reporting for SUTV News.
All right, so it's 12:18 here on the East Coast right now. There's still one more state outstanding. It's Alaska. That closes at 1 o'clock in the morning. Joe Biden is going to be speaking at 12:30, so in about 10 minutes or so, and we are also going to go off the air by that point in time. Give it a rest, and then we'll be back to call more on Thursday, tomorrow. It's been an exciting night, and you know, if we take a step back and think about this race 4 months ago, this is what we expected.
Yes. I mean, I think everybody was prepared to not have a winner tonight. I think every single, no matter what the polls were, whether it was leaning more towards Trump, whether it was leaning more towards Biden, there was absolutely no doubt that just about every single person has accepted that a winner is most likely not going to be called tonight. And now now that we're hearing more that there's errors going on, that ballots have been lost, that states have decided to wait until the following morning, technically this morning, to start recounting the ballots and start continuing counting where they left off. More and more of the states that both candidates needed to win are most likely not going to be called tonight, which means we are most likely not going to have a winner here tonight for you. And when we will see a winner is very uncertain, because who knows what those 300,000 ballots will do for Pennsylvania, recounting Philadelphia, if other counties in Pennsylvania and other states as well need to be recounted. It's all up in the air, and we are most likely going to end the night here with the election being anybody's game.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a long night of trying to figure things out here, and there's still a long way to go. It doesn't look like we're going to get a winner tonight. No. Which again, 4 months ago we expected this. We expected it to be close. We expected it to take a long time, and then as time went on, confidence in the counting went up. Confidence in the fact that perhaps it would be a bigger victory for either candidate went up. So we expected it, at this point in the night, we'd be close to having a winner. But that, frankly, just is not the case. And as much as it pains me to say it, the polling, I don't know, man.
Polling has been a total mixed bag in this election. Polls have just been, I believe it's because there's so many different forms of voting going on in this election that really polling, no matter how much the technology has improved since 2016.
I have a call here. This is from Iowa. This is the Senate seat. Joni Ernst is going to win the seat. Joni Ernst is going to win re-election and beat Democratic challenger Teresa Greenfield. So that's another seat for the Democrats that they thought they had out the window, gone. At this point, it's almost impossible for the Democrats to win back the Senate. That's just the way tonight's unfolded. That's just how the American people have let their voices be heard.
I definitely think that tonight is just going to be, I think we're going to see a lot of losses, a lot of wins for both parties. And I think what's really hurting a lot of their supporters and a lot of the people in those parties is just the uncertainty and just not knowing when we are actually going to get the final results for a lot of these. But as you said, because they were not able to flip this seat, it is very unlikely that the Democrats can win back the Senate.
At this point, with Iowa flipping, now at this point, they need to try and win that other seat in Georgia. Right now, they're down by 10 points there, 9 points there, actually. David Perdue on top of John Ossoff. In the special election, Raphael Warnock, he got more votes in tonight than some of the others. than, compared to, we actually do have a call. I didn't realize we did not call this. Montana goes to Donald Trump.
Again,
So there we go.
Again, that was a state that, like we said, even though it took some time to get results from, it was a pretty safe projection for Donald Trump. And now Donald Trump has won the 3 electoral votes for the state of Montana. And currently, as it stands, with how the New York Times is reporting it, Joe Biden currently sits where the night is at 213 and Donald Trump at 139. But again, Nevada.
Something like that. With Florida missing there and Texas, some of the numbers are off. It depends on what sites you look at. It's still relatively close, though. And I know we're being told that Wyoming's been called, we called that a while ago. So, yeah, why Donald Trump wins Wyoming, just in case you missed it. But back to the Senate. That special election is going to be key because it will not be decided until the runoff in January. So there's the potential that the Democrat wins that seat, and if the Senate comes down to that seat, it could be, it's going to be the decider on who has the majority, whether it makes it a 50-50 tie, and whoever's the vice president at that point, Pence or Kamala Harris, will break the tie, and that'll determine who has the power in the Senate. The Democrats already confirmed they have won back the House, so there's no doubting there. And they believe that they're going to pick up about a net of 5 points or 5 seats or so from tonight. So they're going to expand their lead. But right now, Maine looks like a lost cause for the Democrats right now. Sarah Gideon's down by a lot. There's only 30% of the vote in Maine right now, though. North Carolina is down just to about 1%. Tillis is ahead of Cunningham. Michigan, Gary Peters, the incumbent Democrat, he's still down right now against John James. Montana is close, the Democrat on top, so there's a seat that could flip, but it's still pretty early out there. We already called Arizona. We have not called New Mexico, I do not believe, but right now the Democrat is on top. Ben Ray Lujan up over Mark Ronchetti by about 3 points out there. Plus there's the seat in Alaska, which we haven't gotten to, and I don't know if we will before the night is done. Actually, we won't because we'll be going off the air here shortly.
Well, also, when you look, most likely results are going to be late in Alaska because I believe news broke right before.
We pulled a Florida, or we pulled a 2000. Fox News has retracted their call for Biden for Arizona.
I knew at some point tonight we were going to have a 2000s moment. I knew at some point we most likely were going to have to recall one of these states. Now that Arizona is back to anybody here, again, Arizona is very important in this election. And now, with it up in the air, if Biden loses Arizona, his pathway to the White House has just completely decreased, and it is a very, very slim chance for him without Arizona. So now, Arizona, all eyes are back on Arizona. And I think that when definitely Arizona is the one that we now have to keep an eye out for once again.
But Biden's still got an 8-point lead right now in Arizona. There's still 76% of the, or 24% of the vote that they're waiting on in Arizona. But this is by far not a done deal yet in Arizona. It's still close. I guess the Republicans think that there is still plenty more to count out there, but Joe Biden definitely has outperformed what some expected.
Yeah, I definitely think if you actually look at the map, Arizona is one of Biden's healthier leads in the race. 8 points is one of Biden's strongest leads here on the map. And yeah, you definitely look at it, and now the map, New York Times has just updated. Trump has won Iowa. But when you really look at it, Arizona is still, even though we cannot call it, and we had to retract it, Biden still has his strongest chance as of right now in the state of Arizona. But again, we cannot say. We also have some new news from the Senate.
Yes, we just talked about Ben Ray Lujan, the Democrat. He will win that seat. He'll hang on to that seat in New Mexico. The incumbent is retiring. He's coming in from one of the House seats to take that seat, I think. I'm not sure if I have that right or not. But Lujan is new in that seat at least, and it looks like he will win election in New Mexico. So a hold for the Democrats there, but they still need to pick up seats somewhere else.
I mean, there still are plenty of opportunities for the Democrats to possibly turn something around. There still are seats left open for them to turn, but their chances are looking a lot more slim, especially with how the rest of the night has been playing out. The Senate is looking slimmer and slimmer for the Democrats. But again, with the presidency, like with the House, even though the House has the best odds in terms of knowing who wins from tonight, again, a lot of this stuff is merely up to what the polls are currently saying. And I think as we've learned tonight, polls can be wrong, and I think we've learned this from just about every election. The polls can be wrong, and it will just be a matter of time before we see more results coming in. And in the following days, we are going to see more results coming in, and then we'll get a much better idea of what is to come in the following, most likely in the following day or two.
You know, you would think with all the technology and stuff that we have, that we would actually get more right as time went on instead of wrong.
That's the thing I think that is really ironic. When you really look back at past elections, up into the year 2000, when everything got thrown into question, when back in the 80s and 90s, when technology was far below what the standard is now, we were still getting far more accurate results, and we were getting far more accurate results. But then again, I think that also comes during those elections, it wasn't nearly as close. Those elections were not as big nail biters as the past elections have been, especially with 2016 and 2020.
Well, that's going to end our coverage here tonight. It's been a fun ride from the primaries to the caucuses to the conventions to the debates and everything else in between. SUTV has been proud to be here with you every step of the way, no matter what life throws at us, COVID. On behalf of everybody that has been in front of a camera tonight, no particular order, Patrick Ramsdale, Josie Wilson, Bailey Casada, Megan Talley, Nolan Hoffman, Brady Fisher, Adam Beam, who's been up here with me. He's been walking over back and forth between me, the board for the last 4 hours or so. And we came into tonight not expecting a winner, no matter what the poll said. We'll have a winner soon. And in the meantime, there's nothing we can do but wait. The American people have let their voices be heard. It's just a matter of getting their voices counted. All eyes will be on SUTV News as we bring you the latest results throughout the week. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you Thursday with a whole lot more. From all of our crew, I'm Jacob Hitz with Adam Beam. The rest of us, thank you and good night.
Have a good night.